Hello everyone, V here. V here doing Box Office Addict for you because I'm too busy with my SJW content to fully spend all my time covering box office, but it turns out I like box office too. It's really fun. And me and Sargon love to talk about the box office of the movies. It's so good. Hello everyone. Welcome to Box Office Addict with me, new host V. Very exciting times to be in. Now don't let those gypsies get you. So, this Box Office Addict, we're here to talk about the great Jumanji 2. When I was a kid, I saw Jumanji on VHS and it was really good. So I was very excited for Jumanji 2. And it beat Star Wars this weekend, which I don't think anyone was expecting. So it's going to be great. I cannot wait to talk. It's just getting more racist and Borat as I go on. Very nice box office. That sounds more Italian than it does Borat. But V's here very happy. I love V. V's adorable. He's so adorable. I mean, he's like your favorite dildo or something, you know? You have that one that just feels right. That's what's so great about V. V, get out of here. Okay, I'll go. Get out of here now. Come on. Quit taking over the show. Okay, sorry. Oh, God. He's so silly. He's like that little creature from Return of the Jedi. You know, if Sargon is Jabba, then V's that little creature that's like, on the corner there. That little puppet that just laughs. I think you should make a series called Why Something Doesn't Work. I think I'm already starting that series because I've already had 2 videos that have done really well with that. Oh, by the way, welcome to Box Office Addict. This is my weekly live stream show where I talk about the weekend box office. I break down the numbers, expectations versus reality. We give you some insight, and we talk about movies here, which is what's awesome. And if you're watching it, you're probably a box office addict yourself. So, lots of news this weekend, but I'm going to spend a lot of time this week talking about some of the stuff that people have been responding to my Star Wars videos. If you're new to this channel, which a lot of you are because just added a bunch of new subs, V needs his own franchise. I want the V Cinematic Universe. The VCU is really what we need. We need the Iron Man, and then it needs to, like, bring all... Like, at the end, he needs to have, like, a Sargon show up and be like Nick Fury, like, I want you to join this YouTube community. What YouTube community, Sargon? You know, and then he gets deeper and deeper into it. That was a weird opening to arrive to. Yeah, I know. How do you think I felt? I came into my house and V was here. It's like, get the hell out of here, you little bastard. He's like that little troll gnome thing from Golden Axe that has the bags that run around and you try to hit him with your weapon so you can get items for the quest. That's V. V's one of those little, whatever the hell those were. What were those? Were those dwarfs or trolls? What were those things in Golden Axe? We'll never know. We gotta get V working, because he's way funnier character than we've ever had. Good point. Good point. V and Friends. Yeah. Welcome to V and Friends. It is me and all of my friends, the spectacular V. He's the key to all of this. It matters. It's all about the V. We need to get to V. V for Vendetta. But I'm going to spend a portion of this video responding to the comments on those Star Wars videos, because if you don't know, my Rose video has 130,000 hits now or something in like a week and a half. But there's a lot of comments on it. There's like 2,000 something comments. And then I recently did my Finn video. It's like poetry, it rhymes. I recently did my Finn video. Anyone know any good Golden Globes live stream? I will do a Golden Globes live stream if you want to come to this channel for that. I might actually do one. I was considering it, doing a Golden Globes live stream or something like that, but I'm not sure. I was thinking about doing an Oscar prediction stream. The Golden Globes isn't on tonight, is it? That's like next week or a couple weeks from now. Not sure. But everyone, a lot of the comments that are responding to me, and I'm not going to talk about the ones that don't like the video, where it's like, hey, your voice is whiny, or I hate this. Well, okay, you're not going to get me to stop making videos by attacking my girl voice. I want to respond to some of the comments of people have brought up about, like, things that they think I misinterpreted or I misunderstood about the movie. And I'm going to try to explain how those things are even more convoluted than I could even address in those videos, in both of those videos. And I do plan on doing multiple videos, like why Luke Skywalker's storyline didn't work, why Leia stuff doesn't work, why Rey does. I plan on covering a lot of this stuff individually, because if I did it all in one video, then it's all just going to be these long half-hour, hour-long videos, and a lot of people complained about that. So I'm trying to keep it shorter, like 10 minutes, and focus on piece by piece. Like, this is why I don't like Yoda in this movie. This is why I don't like this character in this storyline. It's on tonight? Well, that's crazy. Huh, I didn't know it was on tonight. How did I not know the Golden Globes was on tonight? Crap, I always watch the Golden Globes. Busy weekend. Alright, well, I might have to cut this a little short or turn on the Golden Globes while we're doing this, because, yeah, I had no idea the Globes are on. They're actually probably starting in the next, like, hour or so. But let's respond to some of these comments before we get into the box office. Okay. On my Finn video, I argued that Finn had the same character arc in both movies. And my argument to this was not me saying this on my own opinion. That was based off people who were trying to tell me Finn's character arc, stuff that I didn't like in Last Jedi. They were saying, no, you don't get it. This was Finn's character arc. He didn't fight with the Resistance, he wanted to leave the Resistance, and then at the end of the movie, he wants to fight for the Resistance. Rian Johnson ruins that character arc by having Rose crash into Finn, obviously, but that's just one of those many things that doesn't work. I really look forward to your why Reylo doesn't work. So that's a great one, why Reylo doesn't work, why Ray-Ben doesn't work. Okay, so a lot of the comments I was getting was people trying to tell me Finn's character arc, and then when I made a video responding to that, a lot of people misinterpreted what I was saying as me trying to say this was Finn's character arc. I was just responding to comments, like 100 comments of the same thing, and I was trying to explain how Finn already did this stuff in the previous movie, how he already went through this cycle. Now, here's what seems to be the line that defines for people what this means. From what I'm getting from the people who like The Last Jedi and think Finn's character is good and that this was well written, they agree with me that in the first movie, Finn overcame his fear and was able to join up and fight at the end, but they're saying he only did that for Rey. And then in this movie, when he wakes up, which is only, we have to assume, like a few hours or not that long after the events of the previous movie, because they do a horrible job of establishing the timeline at the beginning of this movie. We have to assume then Finn, he wakes up and he's not a coward, but he's selfish is what they're saying. And he just wants to go to Rey because he doesn't care about the Resistance. So in the first movie, he did learn to fight and care about something. He just doesn't care about the Resistance. And in the second movie, Finn at the end of the film is now fighting for the Resistance. It's not Rey who inspired him to do this. It was Rose. I don't get why they entertain the idea of Kylo being redeemed. So here's the issue with that. Here's my issue with this whole discussion about Finn's character. Because one person even said to me, they go, it's not so much he was repeating the same arc, as that was the next logical place for the character to go. Okay, well, I don't know if you know what the word logic means, or logical, if you want to go with that. And what that's not logical. Let me explain The Last Jedi to people, because they seem to make this movie up in their heads that wasn't the film that exists that Rian Johnson made. And they seem to misinterpret the Force Awakens. Finn's only friend wasn't Rey. Finn's other friend was Poe. Which ones are worse, in your opinion? Last Jedi is a much worse movie than Force Awakens. It's not even close. It's really not even close. Last Jedi is a failure in much larger ways than The Force Awakens. Now, Last Jedi is a response to a lot of the failures in Force Awakens. They're both failures, but Force Awakens is a much better executed film for what it's setting out to do than Last Jedi is trying to do. Force Awakens is just trying to be a generic, entertaining spectacle remake of New Hope to bring in new Star Wars fans and make people nostalgic. Last Jedi trying to be a defining film in the series and this great work of art that changes things and subverts your expectations. So to me, it fails in much larger ways. I don't love The Force Awakens, but as a generic reboot of New Hope, it's successful. See, I don't get what was original about The Last Jedi. People keep saying that to me, but I don't know what was original. I mean, I guess if you think flying space Leia is original, I guess technically it is, but it's also stupid. So I mean, then Tommy Wiseau's an original, and so is The Room, but it's not a good movie. I I agree that Force Awakens was a rehash, but I think it was trying to be a rehash, and it succeeded in that regard. Well, I think The Last Jedi fails miserably as an original piece of storytelling. Yeah, I don't know what was original about The Last Jedi. I'm still confused by when people say that. I'm not trying to be mean. I just don't get people go, it was so bold and new. I'm like, not really. A lot of the stuff had already been covered in Star Wars before. In particular, Empire and Return of the Jedi had already covered a lot of these themes, like failure. And just a lot of the characters, the things they learn. But here's the issue with this, okay? If Finn's still selfish at the end of Force Awakens, he's selfish, right? That he learned his lesson to fight with friends, and then in this movie, he doesn't care about the Resistance. Then that's even worse. That's even worse than the movie that people are trying to argue, that Finn's just trying to leave. Everything that Finn and Poe do in The Last Jedi makes sense, based off what we know about the Resistance and what's going on. Would you fight for a group that's failed over 30 years, that's lost their entire military, that's lost the hold they've had on the galaxy? Are you supposed to follow people that have been horrible military leaders? I mean, all Rian Johnson did was say that Leia was terrible at what she does. She's awful at it. And Luke was bad, and like they were all really bad at what they did. So when Finn's leaving at the beginning to go find Rey, he's leaving because they're all about to die. It's established right then that we're all about to die. The First Order's about to wipe us out. And because Laura Dern's character won't tell anyone her plan, everyone panics. Because they go, oh, we're all going to die. So he goes, well, I'm going to go and try and help find Rey, because she's the most important person to this whole thing. Without her, we have nothing. And if I can go to Rey and warn her about this, maybe we can figure something else. We need Rey. And then Rose stops him because she thinks he's a coward trying to get away. And he tries to explain to her, like, no, you don't understand. We're all about to die. And Rose, like a moron, doesn't want to listen to this very reasonable explanation. Poe's actions are only happened because of Laura Dern's character hold the door. Had she told her plan, Poe wouldn't have done the mutiny and done a lot of the things he did and had that plan. He would have listened to her and tried to follow through with the plan. This is why it's bad writing. The characters don't have arcs. They have contrived setups and payoffs that were designed by Rian Johnson to get to these plot points he wanted to get to, just to subvert your expectations. He didn't actually write characters and story arcs, okay? Poe doesn't have an arc. Okay, Poe does everything right for the most part. Like, the opening scene's the only time Poe does something he probably shouldn't have done, which I felt contradicted his character before, but that's fine. But here's the issue with that. Poe is justified in what he does against Laura Dern's character. She won't talk to him. She's being a jerk. And there's only like 100 Resistance fighters left. And they're dying. So as far as he's concerned, he's like, you're going to kill us. You're a traitor. You're going to kill... He's completely right in that moment. Poe is not being out of place at all. He's saying, you're killing us and you don't care. You are a traitor. You do not care about this. That is exactly right from what he knows and everyone else on the ship knows. Because she doesn't want to tell anyone her plan. Because she doesn't care to explain to anyone, especially the top people with the Resistance, like Poe, to be like, hey, this is what's going on. So Finn just thinks, hey, we're going to die. We have to leave. We're going to freaking die. And he's completely right. As a moviegoer, if the whole thing is, here's the problem with this. If I'm supposed to buy Finn's character arc that he wants to fight for the Resistance now, because he cares about them, then I, as a moviegoer, have to believe the Resistance is worth fighting for. I have to believe as a moviegoer that he had to see the Resistance and what it represented and want to be part of that. The problem with it is the Resistance is terrible. Honestly, you could make the argument that the Empire was better at running the galaxy than the Republic was, than Leia and them were. Learn to retreat and not be a hothead. I know, Poe learned to retreat. No, what he learned was to blindly follow authority. That's the message of Poe's story. Blindly follow authority. Don't question authority. Don't question that this person won't tell you what's going on. Don't worry that everyone around you that you care about is dying. Don't have any fear at all. Just go along with authority and believe them and they'll be right. And then Poe learns that lesson at the end. I mean, did people not see how stupid this is? How poorly rendered and written that stuff is? Like, it just baffles me that people don't even think about that. Like, they try to explain one thing and then it just brings down the house of cards. If it's all about Finn learning to fight for the Resistance and everything that we got from that was an animal rights message or child slavery. Well, guess what? Child slavery was around before. The Jedi were around when there was child slavery. Qui-Gon goes and gets a child slave. Anakin was a child slave. So apparently they didn't care. They didn't care that there was child slavery. In this universe, there's still child slavery. So it doesn't matter if the Empire or the Republic are in charge. Why do I care about the spark that ignites the Resistance? I don't care about the Resistance. I think Leia and them probably should die. I think they're really bad. And the movie screwed this up too. Had Kylo and Rey teamed up at the end and said, hey, screw the Resistance and screw the First Order. Let's start our own thing because they're both wrong. Then the movie would have made more sense with that stuff. But instead, the movie at the end is saying the Resistance is the good guys. The kid sees the thing at the end and he's inspired by the Resistance. Why would a little kid who doesn't understand the complexities of these things be inspired by a group that's terrible? They failed. They've blown up 3 Death Stars and they're still losing. Finn should leave. He should go back to the First Order. Really? I mean, even the female feminist message is bad for Rian Johnson to the point. Hold the Door's a terrible leader. Leia's been a failed general for 30 years. She's done a horrible job. For some reason, the First Order was able to gain a massive army and build a Death Star on a planet without anyone knowing. And they blew up 5 planets, so that's Leia's fault for being horrible. Whoever is the head of the galaxy right now is doing a horrible job. Rey fails and is horrible. And apparently the male characters who make logical decisions, like what Finn does at the beginning, makes a lot of sense. He should leave and go find Rey, because otherwise he's just going to die. There's no other option at that point, because Hold the Door's not telling them anything. That's bad writing. When the character... Writing is therefore but. It's the South Park thing. Something has to happen which makes something else happen. It has to be a series of consequences relate to something. None of the things in this movie are this happens, then this happens. Rian Johnson tries to write it that way, but he does it in such a stupid way. Because if it's never established throughout the movie why the Resistance is worth fighting for, or why they even should be running the galaxy, because they're apparently terrible at it, and then the movie doesn't even end with the split like it's hinting at between Kylo and Rey, then it's just an incoherent movie. Those things don't come together. The message doesn't come together. It's not that Finn's a coward. It's not even that he doesn't care about the Resistance. Finn's just not a moron who's going to sit there and die and listen to this person who apparently none of them knew before. Nobody knew Laura Dern's character. She just shows up, Mr. Purple Head Lady, and they're all supposed to listen to her because of Leia. Why? Why? We never even get a scene where we buy that she's a leader. She's terrible at it. She's legit terrible at this. Oh, but she didn't want to be a hero. And she didn't want to provide comfort. And I hate the argument, she didn't have to tell anyone her plans. If it was a man, you wouldn't complain about this. I had several comments saying that I wouldn't complain about this if it was a man. That it's my chauvinism, that's that. Yeah. If it was a man, I think more people would be complaining about it. And I'll throw that argument back at you. If Rey was a guy, nobody would defend her. If Rey was a male character, nobody would feel the need to defend her ever. Everybody would just criticize how badly written she is. But because she's a girl, people blindly want to defend her and cry sexism. If she was just a guy, we'd all talk about how bland and terrible she is. But because she's a woman, people think, well, the femininity's the only unique aspect about her. She doesn't have a character. None of these people have character. Finn doesn't even have a character. Okay? The beginning of the first movie is so stupid. We see Finn go into his first battle. We don't know anything about him. Some guy puts a red blood handprint on his face, and then Finn leaves. And then we find out he was a janitor, and that was his first battle, and he was scared. So, for some reason, we meet this character, and we're just supposed to assume that he has no basis of that these people murder people. We don't get how he. I mean, honestly, it's just like what he just decides to have morals. Then, it's so half-assed. It's half-baked. It's barely rendered, and then at the end, yeah, like he tries to fight at the end. But then I guess the friendship with Poe doesn't mean anything. Him hugging Poe and being friends with Poe, and even noticing BB-8 and talking about that because of Poe doesn't matter. He just cares about Rey. It's only Rey. Because I guess the movie I saw where he was friends with Poe and Rey is no longer a movie. In fact, I honestly thought he had a better friendship with Poe than Rey. And everyone kind of said that those two had chemistry and talked about a gay romance. So, in this movie, I guess he just doesn't care about his friend Poe anymore. He's just like, well, Poe's gonna die. I guess it doesn't matter. Also, how is he not trying to help the Resistance? I don't get that argument either, that he was selfish. He's trying to leave. Rose stops him. After she stops him, her, Poe, and Finn go to make a plan to go to, Canto Bight, the casino planet. And after they make that plan, Finn follows through with it and goes along with the plan. He never argues or fights with them ever. He goes with Rose, and then they go in the ship later to deactivate the tracker. So Finn was already fighting for the Resistance the whole movie. Well, it doesn't matter if it was in a book. That's stupid. Laura Dern's character was a friend of Leia's before New Hope. It was in a book. Wow, it was in some really badly written fanfic book that Star Wars fans tell you to go read to explain things that should be explained in a movie. You know, you didn't have to read the expanded universe to understand the original trilogy and what the characters were there for. It's always like, no, they explained this in the book. They explained the Knights of Ren in a book. Well, that's terrible storytelling. You're making someone else have to explain something that you were too lazy to explain in a line of dialogue or with one shot in your movie. Because these are such a this is such a convoluted series now of films. That's the thing that I don't get what the idea is then. So Finn is selfish and wants to leave with Rey, but then he immediately changes his mind within 5 minutes. Because he goes on the mission with Rose. So he's not trying to run away from the Resistance. He is fighting for the Resistance at that point. That is what he is doing. When he goes on the ship and almost gets his head cut off, and then she goes, "Rebel scum." And I get that he's a Resistance fighter now, but how is that the logical conclusion for his character? That's it. The events of this movie take place right after Force Awakens, like hours maybe. So Finn just woke up after getting his spine cut, I guess, and he's fine now because they have, I guess, really advanced metal. I mean, I know Luke was in the tank thing too, but Jesus, I guess it works really fast now if you get your back cut up. And it's just like, why does Disney get to say what's canon and what's not? Because they own it. They suggested some lesbian relationship between Hold the Door and Leia. Well, yeah, of course they did. We got to make every character a blank slate so that we can put ourselves in their place. If you were in charge of the new trilogy with an actual writing room to execute your ideas, what would you have done differently plot-wise and story beats? Oh, dude, there's too many things. That's for too many videos. There's way too many things. I would have done everything differently. They really made a bunch of bad mistakes. But so here's the issue. Finn's character arc doesn't work because at the end of The Force Awakens, when he fights for Rey and he holds the lightsaber and he has the jacket on, which I took symbolically meant that he was heroic like Poe now because he took the jacket from Poe, and then even feels guilt about that, and then Poe tells him to keep it. When he goes there at the end to blow up the First Order base, I don't even get how that's totally selfish. He's doing a really noble, good thing, and he could die. He's really, I mean, it's not, once again, it's not that he's coward. He's there with Han. He liked Han's character. Him and Han were bonding. They're friends in that movie. He's bonding with Poe and Rey. They're all doing that and they're all part of the Resistance at that point. So how is Finn not a member of the Resistance at that point? That's what I don't get. He's with the team. And then he wakes up here and he wants to go see Rey because he knows they're all going to die because the Resistance is apparently really terrible. I don't even get the events following this movie. The last movie, they blew up the Starkiller base, and then this movie starts, and they're immediately being chased and killed off. And also, that's exactly how Empire opens, which is aggravating to the subversion aspect. New Hope ends with them blowing up the Death Star, and Empire starts with the Battle of Hoth. This movie starts with the Battle of Hoth in space. And it's just like, I don't get how people don't see how that's stupid. That the Resistance is so incompetent, they're getting wiped out, and the characters really have no reason to stay with the Resistance. Poe should honestly just go join the First Order at this point. And then if Rian Johnson's building to a movie where it's neither side, and it's all about Kylo and Rey making their own thing, he doesn't commit to that either, and then the little kid's inspired at the end about the Resistance. So the movie tries to tell you to fight for the Resistance and that they matter and that they need a spark, even though the movie never makes a good argument for the Resistance. Even Laura Dern's character going into Lightspeed to sacrifice herself isn't good enough. It isn't a good enough thing to make me go, oh, I want the Resistance to win. I think the Resistance would be better off to get killed off. Kylo was right at the end of the movie. He was right when he talked to Rey. He said, let's just let them all die. Let them kill Leia and everyone. They should have killed Leia and Poe. And the galaxy probably would be better off without Leia. It would probably be better off without Poe, with any of those characters. Because why? What do they provide? The galaxy's still crap. There's still insane amounts of war profiteering. There's still child slavery. The Republic is crumbled. Several planets have been blown up. Leia is not good at what she does. And there's no reason to root for the Resistance. The reason you rooted for the Rebels in the original trilogy was because the Empire was evil and they ran an evil galaxy. So you wanted to see these people overthrow them and bring peace to galaxy and bring balance to the galaxy, that it become this it was like communist, you know, and they really wanted to fight against that. In this series, everything's so muddled that I don't even know who's running anything, who makes the decisions, who the hell's in charge. Beyond that, though, I wasn't... But, like, let me... Just to get my point, though, I wasn't trying to say that Finn didn't just repeat his same character arc. It's not that he just did that. It's that it's convoluted. Rian Johnson did not logically follow up Finn's character from the previous film, because Finn's character in the previous film was already fighting for the Resistance. It wasn't that he was just fighting for Rey. That is so stupid and not what J.J. Abrams was doing. Okay, you're just interpreting the film that way now because that's what Rian Johnson tried to do with bad writing. He didn't give Finn any progress. Finn didn't develop that relationship with Finn and Poe. I mean, with Poe and Rey. He didn't develop from anywhere. He just goes back to being that guy who's trying to run and be goofy. Instead of giving him actual character development and motivations that make sense, really, Finn's motivations don't make a lot of sense. Why is he even fighting for the Resistance? He has no real reason to. Why? Because of the child slaves and the war profiteering? That was already going on. That's not because of the First Order. That was already happening. So there's no reason to fight for the rebels. Why? They're not good either. The movie's even trying to say that, like, don't build your heroes up. Heroes can fail. They're not perfect. Okay. Well, then why would Finn give a crap about the Resistance? So he's just a moron that at the end blindly follows the authority and is going to kill himself like a suicide bomber? And then Poe just blindly follows authority? What a great lesson. What a great lesson they learned. I mean, nothing about that's complex or interesting or... It's just bad. It's just a bunch of things that don't mesh together. So Finn's both a blind follower at the beginning of Force Awakens who leaves, and then at this movie he's a blind follower of the Resistance. Wow, what a great character arc. He went exactly back to where he was at the beginning. And even him trying to sacrifice himself and fighting for the Resistance now. I get what people are saying, that Rose inspired him, not Rey. And Rose matters more than Rey does because Rose is showing him what the Resistance can do, not what Rey can do. But she didn't show him what the Resistance can do. She just showed him child slavery and animals getting hurt and stuff like that and war profiteering. What's the Republic going to do about that? They didn't do anything before. I mean, Luke was right. They're hypocrites. But that's the problem. Then there's nobody to root for. You don't care about anything. Why would I care if Finn fights for the Rebels? Why do I care if Poe fights for the Rebels? Why do I even care about the Rebels? I don't. In fact, I'd probably prefer if they had all died off at the end. Why should I care about them? They're incompetent. They're not good leaders. Not only are they not competent, they're terrible with military strategy. Somehow they were able to blow up 3 Death Stars in the last 30 years, and they're still losing the war. And people always say to me, there's plenty of times in history. No, that's pretty much like if we dropped the nuclear bombs in Japan, and that somehow Japan was able to rise up and then take over the world. That's basically what this would be. If we drop 3 nuclear bombs. Basically, because we keep blowing, like, I don't think people get that. We blow up these, we killed their emperor, we blew up their planet base, and then in this movie, the Resistance is so small. And I know that the First Order blew up 5 planets previously, but damn, like, how many soldiers do they have? Why does the Empire and the First Order just have unlimited soldiers? And weapons and crap. Where are they getting all the money for this stuff? I know that there's profits and that the people are betting on it, but, like, why are you putting money into them? They're just going to be losing money. They're not winning any war. They're just, like, the war doesn't even make any sense. It's honestly just as convoluted as the war in politics in the prequels, if not more so. RJ couldn't improve the foundation and said he decided to deconstruct Star Wars. See, that's a weird thing. You can't even deconstruct Star Wars, though. It just is what it is. Deconstruction's a waste of time. You could deconstruct characters in Star Wars somewhat, but you can't deconstruct the whole lore and franchise. It's not set up for that. It makes... Hold on, I'm still trying to go down. It makes no sense why they wait until the last second to kamikaze Lightspeed the First Order tracker. Exactly, why didn't she do that earlier if they could do that? Then it would have given people time to escape. I wouldn't, Sorry. One thing I wonder is why they think that showing all the beloved characters from the OT failing at everything would be a good idea. I don't know, because they're trying to tell you that heroes fail and don't love your heroes and that, but, like, okay, why is that an interesting message? Like, Unforgiven's complex because Clint Eastwood's commenting on the nature and violence and what he's contributed to the nature of violence, playing characters like that, and the myth of the cowboy in the Old West. Okay, the Jedi, the myth, the deconstruction of, I guess you're trying to deconstruct the samurai, or something like that. It's not, they're not doing anything with it that's that interesting. It's just that they're failures. It's not that they failed simply because of hubris, because that's what Luke says, or because of circumstance. They're just failures because. Luke's just a failure because the story requires it. Leia just failed for 30 years because the story requires it. Han just went back to being a smuggler and a deadbeat dad because the story requires it. That's it. They're no longer the characters. They're ideas of someone else. They're the actors playing those characters, but they're not the characters anymore. The character is gone. Just like Kingdom in the Crystal Skull, Indiana Jones as an old man wouldn't still be going out there doing adventures. He would be a teacher only. He'd be a professor only, but the character's missing now. Okay, Han Solo wouldn't be an old smuggler. He just wouldn't be. Like, it's stupid at that point. It makes him a cartoon character. He quits being human. You quit being able to believe it. There was a believability to the original trilogy because things made sense. The characters felt human. Han's now a cartoon. I'm still doing what I'm doing in my 70s, making one-liners. It's like, what? Why is Luke a child? Why is Luke a failed child? Like, it's so silly. Like, they're childish with what they do. They no longer have that sense of responsibility, and you can no longer buy their decisions making any sense. Honestly, it's like this whole 30 years of story that's interesting as it being told to us in these movies, and we're just having to accept these characters now are failures, because that's the whole theme now of these series, is that we have to get rid of the old and introduce the new. And yet Leia gets superpowers and is the strongest one now because Kathleen Kennedy loves Leia. Finn makes the point on Canto Bight that destruction solves inequality. That destruction solves inequality. Destruction solves inequality? What? One thing I wonder is why did they... Oh, sorry, I read that part. Yeah, no, the prequels are canon now. It's so funny. Like, some of the arguments people are throwing at me for this movie is like, well, the prequels had this, so now we're using the prequels as an argument. The prequels is now the argument for stuff to defend this movie. So this movie has a lot... This and Force Awakens have a lot of the same problems the prequels have. And people are saying, well, no, the prequels did this. If we have to use the prequels as an argument for quality or to explain something, that's a very bad sign. I don't even like to count the prequels. I know you have to now. But, yeah, the prequels ruined Star Wars. Did everyone forget that George Lucas did a horrible job writing those movies and they're badly made and the lore was awful and he ruined the lightsaber and he ruined the myth of the Jedi and Metachlorians and stuff? This is like Metachlorian stuff. And people are defending it. I mean, it's the same stuff that's crappy about Phantom Menace. People are trying to explain. And I'm like, do you even get why the original trilogy were good movies and not just being a Star Wars fanatic? Germany had to go for round 2 after humiliating defeat in 1918. Round 2? Yeah, but that's the thing. Star Wars, the original trilogy, was World War II. That's what Star Wars was. It wasn't World War I, it was World War II. It was the aerial combat and stuff like that, alright? And it wasn't... and Germany didn't have a Death Star blown up. Okay, that's the issue here. Their main super weapon that's being designed by the Empire twice... And the Emperor's been killed. Okay, we killed Hitler. That was in the 40s. Germany has not risen since that time, and the likelihood of that is very low to impossible. And that's kind of the problem here. So that means that, unlike America and other countries, which over the last, for the late century and this new century and everything, the new millennium, have been able to keep the military going and keep order. Apparently, the Republican Leia them just did an awful job of bringing any peace or balance to the gap. They did a terrible job, apparently. And then some people try to say to me, well, it was imbalanced in the prequels, and then it's because the light and the dark side are always at a constant fight with each other. So now the dark side has to come back after the previous movie, because we're getting to this more gray place. But because we don't know anything about Snoke or where he came from, and it doesn't even make any sense that he just popped up one day and is this old ancient Sith Lord... it doesn't work. So we can't really accept the difference in the light dark side stuff. I mean, at least the prequels in the original trilogy were very connected. They made sense coherently how Palpatine did this and then became the Emperor. It doesn't make sense how Snoke was able to get so much power or influence. And we don't know how. We literally have no idea how Snoke was able to get so powerful and stuff. And it's like, where did this guy even come from? What is he? You know, you didn't... The prequels at least explained Palpatine's character and showed the politics of what he did and how he manipulated people. How the hell did Snoke get the galaxy to even put up with this, that he was building a Death Star? I don't know. You know, the thing with Germany is like, yeah, that's like fighting in the trenches, and then because of anti-German sentiment, they were able to help nationalism grow, and Europe did not advance in the technology the rest like Germany did. But we haven't seen much advanced technology with the First Order. Why is the TIE Fighter still so more like... What, does the Republic not buy new equipment? Does the Resistance not get new military equipment? Where's their new stuff? Why does the First Order have all the new stuff? And I know it's like, oh, because the Cantobite people are giving the money, but okay, that's not really how that works. I don't know if that's how Rian Johnson and Disney think. I know war profiteering is not right, but I don't know. I guess they think it's that simple, that if you just give people the money and weapons, they'll be able to take out the other person that easily. But that's not how that exactly works. I don't know, and it's just like, how did they even get the technology in the 30 years? What the hell? I mean, yeah, they're trying to do like this is the World War II to World War I, but Star Wars was already World War II. World War I was the Clone Wars. That was the war in the prequel. So this would be World War III in this new series, I guess? No, nothing in the movie makes sense. What I'm saying, when you actually break this stuff down, it's convoluted as hell. Why they would fight for the Resistance, the time span in between The Force Awakens and this, the character development and their motivations, this taking place hours after the previous film, makes it even more confusing. How did Poe go from a guy that wasn't a hothead at all, which I don't know why people think he was some hothead, cocky guy, to a complete arrogant a-hole who doesn't listen to orders? Why wouldn't he listen to orders? Why? Why would he do that? That's not the Poe that we knew in Force Awakens. If anything, he was a guy that blindly followed orders. And then he disobeys Leia because, oh, it's the cliche about the Poe. So every movie, the characters just become different characters now. They just start over. We don't get to go and go, oh, this is like the original things. What I want to know, was there ever any period of peace after the original trilogy? No, apparently very little. I guess, because even Luke saying, like, at one point, Leia thought Snoke's the one that turned Kylo, but it was me. And I'm like, well, where the hell was Snoke at that time? Were you training the Jedi to fight Snoke? Was Luke training Kylo and the other Jedi to fight Snoke? What happened to the other Jedi that Kylo left with? Where are the Knights of Ren? Why did Rey see the Knights of Ren in Force Awakens? What the hell does any of that stuff mean? And I don't care if it's in a book. Why is it in the movie? Why did I see a bunch of dudes standing there with lightsabers? Where are they? What did Snoke do with them? Where are those characters? Like, that's the thing about screenwriting. Something has to be there for a reason to result in this. This is here, therefore this happens. The original trilogy does this brilliantly. This is here, so then this happens. All of these things that are in this movie, in The Last Jedi and Force Awakens, they don't add up. This happens, so this happens. That's not how it works. It's two different directors making a bunch of different decisions that are separate from the decisions in each other's movies. Which would be fine if the film's still connected on a level of just basics of storytelling, but they feel like two separate versions of this world. Okay, and you could say what you want about Irvin Kershner directing Empire and it different from Lucas, but Lucas was still involved with the production, and everyone working on that movie was trying to develop the stuff that was set up in Star Wars and take it to new places. This movie is just a movie on its own. It's not really a sequel to Force Awakens in a lot of ways. It's got its own setup at the beginning where it's like, yeah, now the First Order sways strong and they're going to take over. It's like, that was not the way J.J. Abrams set up the things in Force Awakens. You got no sense at the end of that movie that the First Order was at the edge of killing the Resistance. It ended like the Resistance just had this big victory and the First Order took a big hit. But instead, it comes off like that meant nothing, I guess. It's like, it always ticks me off about Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight Rises takes place 8 years after the events of The Dark Knight, and Batman hasn't been Batman for 10 years because of Rachel. And he quit. They try to act like he quit after the night that he was limping. If you go watch Dark Knight, it was never at all came across like when he was limping at the end that he had a leg injury that was going to be there forever. And it never came off like he was going to quit being Batman. The idea came off like he was going to stay being Batman, and he had to be Batman, and they needed Harvey Dent's death to mean something. But then it cuts to 10 years later, and I go, wait, so he just quit being Batman? It made no sense with the end of The Dark Knight. What the ending of The Dark Knight felt like, what it was executed as, did not make any sense for the beginning of Dark Knight Rises with Batman being the way he is. That's what the problem with a lot of this movie is. Poe isn't Poe anymore. Finn's character going back to, like, oh, I gotta go be with Ray and fight with Ray and help Ray out. Why? What the hell is that? What is with this? Why are the characters so indecisive? Why can't they make decisions for themselves? Why can't they talk about things in a reasonable way and make decent plans that make sense? You know, I mean, Han and Leia, everything they did made a lot of sense. You know, when they get betrayed on Cloud City, that sucks because they were actually doing a lot of things that were smart. They were hiding. They were trying to make a plan. And then, yeah, they get screwed over. And that made the Empire feel intimidating because they were able to infiltrate there and get Lando to turn on his friend. In this movie, well, yeah, why would I care if the Resistance lives or dies? I really don't. And there's so few of them left that who cares? Oh, and some little kid's gonna go fight now. Wow. So we're back to the prequels again. We're back to little kids. Wow, that's a neat trick. We get the hero's message fall from Hollywood every day. No, Logan did that this year with Wolverine, and it did it so much better. It's unbelievable that Luke, who tried to save Vader, a.k.a. Space Hitler right hand, would even get the idea of try killing... The fact that he even went in there and turned the lightsaber on is ridiculous. Like, it's really lazy. Yeah, the destruction caused the horse dogs. Finn said it was good that we made them hurt, so their terrorism was good, according to Finn. Yeah, I guess the message is pro-terrorism? Or something? I don't know what they're trying to say. Apparently TIE fighters could just fly into a hangar bay and blow it up into the inside. No, TIE fighters are just are the most amazing thing ever, and they still are today. I don't know why we haven't made our own TIE fighters at this point. Yeah, where are the new vehicles? It's been 30 years and everybody's flying the same stuff. Now, I know in the real world we fly a lot of the same stuff, but we also invent a lot of new things, too. I'd like to see some new weapons. You should take over Star... No, thank you. Apparently, yeah. The First Order should have been a military insurgency used for just one movie. That would have been a good idea. Well, they should have shown up in the first movie, and we'd have been like, who are these guys? Where are they showing up? The movie was over for me when they showed bombs falling down. Oh, I know. I know, Ryan. It's a fantasy movie. People aren't going to care about physics. It doesn't matter about gravity and all that. None of that oxygen. Nothing matters. Leia can survive because the Force. It's magic. Ooh. It's like, oh, God. They've made the Force just completely, like, so magical that it's just silly now. It no longer really represents the psychology of the characters or the struggle they go through. It's just a device, like a cheap superpower, like anything else. It's as cheap as a cheap superhero superpower. I'm a Steelers fan, big time, big Steelers fan. Dark Knight Rises was a bit silly. It was also stupid. Starkiller Base was supposed to be the last gasp. Hold on, let me try to read your comment. And Ray needed to get trained to go and hunt the people behind it. The man who captured Elkman style. The ending of Dark Knight come across as the explanation for why Batman was wanted by the law in the Yeah, it was more that... I know. No, that's the problem. Yeah, it doesn't translate over to Dark Knight Rises. It doesn't feel organic from Batman Begins and Dark Knight. It feels like a totally different universe and that Batman's characters change. It did not... Rachel even dies at Dark Knight and he cries and gets over it, and then in the third act he's still Batman, but apparently in Dark Knight Rises, for 10 years he's been crying about a girl? That's so stupid. For 10 years he's been whining because of Rachel? Really? Batman? So that means Christian Bale's Batman was only Batman for like a year. For about 1 year he was Batman and then quit. But you are smarter than many of the guys making Star... There's a lot of people that are better. It's just talented people don't want to work on the new Star Wars because you don't get any creative control. So they hire hacks who will listen to the producers. That's the thing. If nothing makes sense logically, then it doesn't matter. The things have to make sense from a storytelling standpoint. The actions have to make sense for me to care about the things that are happening. I don't care about the good and evil. I don't care about the great. I don't care about the Resistance or the First Order because nothing that's happening makes any logical sense from a storytelling standpoint. It doesn't work. It's just a collection of scenes and ideas that aren't fleshed out into a coherent film story or two stories that connect together. That's the main issue. I don't know, I'm ranting way too much about this movie, not covering the box office, though. So let's actually get to the box office. But I just want to cover some people's comments. They keep trying to tell me that I didn't understand Finn's character. No, there is no understanding. It's poorly done. It's convoluted. It's not handled well. It's several things that are convoluted. The movie's filled with convoluted stuff. Alright, they just change characters, change on the dime. That's what we call contrived. It's contrived. When characters just do things to suit the writer and what they want to accomplish, that's contrived. It's not somebody writing something good that's smart where you go, wow, that's pretty clever how you pulled that off. That's not what they did. Okay? Rian Johnson did a horrible... Like, it's a really bad script. That doesn't mean it's a badly made film or a bad film overall, but the script is really janky and not well constructed. And if you try to argue that it is, I just don't know. What books do you like? What kind of movies do you like if you think that's good storytelling? Like, to me, that's everything that is so... Like, everything in it was everything that's so bad about, like, Phantom Menace. That's the one that it was most similar to me. It was Phantom Menace. Where it was so many things that could work, but they don't mesh together. You know, the Anakin on Tatooine and being a slave and his mother, and Jar Jar, and the Gungans and everything, and Darth Maul. It doesn't all come together. It's all cool stuff on paper, and then once you put it all together, it's a mess. And that's kind of how it is with this movie. Everything doesn't come together. But it's like poetry, it rhymes. That's the thing, they just want to turn it into a superpower. It's not even a frickin'... The Force isn't even anything interesting anymore. I felt like Finn's character arc in the First Order was just being able to stand up against the First Order, defending his friend. His character arc in The Last Jedi is about him willing to... That's all anyone keeps... Right there, that's all anyone keeps saying. His character arc in the first movie is to fight the Resistance, to fight against the First Order. His character arc in the second movie is to fight against the is to be part of the Resistance. Wow, what an amazing character arc he had. He went from a guy who left this group to fight... and we don't know much about him, and he learned to fight against the people he hated, and then in this movie, he teams up with the other side to fight against the people he hates, to stand up for the Resistance so they can save the child slaves and the horse dog rabbit things. Wow, great. What a great character arc. When Finn looked through that telescope, and he saw that animal and that little boy getting beat up, that was one of the most powerful moments in film for me, man. I cried. I saw then that my man Finn was changing. That's a comment I keep getting over and over again, is that, no, you don't get it. His character arc is now that he's fighting for the Resistance. Okay, well, that's even worse. That's even worse writing now. So now his character's such... Like, what else? What other option did he have? If he wanted to hate the First Order and fight against them, okay, then if he leaves and the First Order takes over the galaxy, Finn is dead. They will find him and kill him. He is a traitor. Okay? His only option is to join up with the Republic, the Resistance, and fight against the First Order. He doesn't have any other options. Okay? So him just fighting for the Resistance because it represents something, what does it represent? Hope? For who? It's a hopeless universe. Child slavery hasn't been solved since the days of Anakin Skywalker. There's no hope. What are they going to do? They're going to fix the galaxy? How? How are they going to stop the Canto Bight stuff? How are they going to stop the war? There's no way to. Leia wasn't able to do it. How are Rey, Poe, and Finn going to be able to do it? There's no way they're going to be able to do it. They don't even have an army anymore. Who the hell are they even... What are they even fighting for? Apparently, Kylo just runs the galaxy now. Pretty sure he wasn't at the Resistance Outpost just to beat off Poe at the end. That's the thing. Why was he at the Resistance Outpost at the end? Why did he hug Poe? Why did he say, hey, thanks for finding my droid. You keep the jacket. Why did he go with Han to the Starkiller base? Wasn't Finn part of the Resistance at the end of that movie? So now you're trying to tell me that he wasn't? He was just there because of Rey? Okay. Well, then he's like then he's honestly the most cucked side friend character ever. He knew Rey for a few hours and he's willing to go through all this stuff for Rey and she just keeps friend zoning him. That's the complexity of Star Wars now, is friend zoning. A guy just wants to get in a girl's pants if she doesn't want to be with them. I wish they would have tapped into the idea of the Resistance not necessarily being a good force, like how the hacker... Exactly! They hardly go into it. It's barely addressed in the movie. Because that's the thing, they don't want to go into that maybe the Resistance is bad. Maybe they suck. Maybe there shouldn't be a resistance. But at the end, there's a resistance. That's the last shot of the damn movie. Child slavery caused Darth Vader. Okay. The EU fixed more problems post Return of the Jedi, but Jesus Christ. I originally thought Finn would be the new Han, but definitely... That's the thing, I tried to explain. Han's character made sense, because Jabba the Hutt wanted him, because he dropped the cargo. So he didn't want to leave at the end of New Hope. He had to, because... And then in Empire, he's going to do because of Jabba. It's a plot line that's played out throughout the trilogy. Because this happens, this happens. Because Han drops the cargo, he can't give the money back. He can't give the money to he can't deal with Jabba. So he has to, at the end of the movie, he's trying to deal with Jabba. Then his conscience, he goes, no, I have to go fight for my friends to blow up, to help Luke out. That's what's great, is that he does that, which is what Poe learns, right? But then in the second, I mean, what Finn learns, but in the second movie, Han is part of the rebels. He only leaves because he's telling her, like, hey, if I don't go deal with Jabba, I'm going to be screwed. He doesn't deal with Jabba then. Guess what happens at the end of Empire? Han gets screwed. He gets frozen in carbonite, and Boba Fett takes him to Jabba. And then in the third film, they have to save him from Jabba. So something they get set up in New Hope is then continued on in Empire, and then you get the payoff to it in Return of the Jedi. That's not what they're doing in these movies. You didn't get a setup of Poe being this hot-headed pilot guy in the first movie, then it continues here and gets a payoff in the third movie. Each film is trying to have its own character arc that is just random to the director or the writer doing it now. Finn's character, instead of saying, hey, now he's a member of the Resistance, and where does he go from here trying to fit into this new thing? Instead, he's just back to where he was about... He's just a guy who just cares about Rey again. That's all he has the intellectual prowess to do. That's all he has morally to do, is to care about one person. Really? Like, he's just a bumbling buffoon. I mean, it's a bunch of stupid people. Why would I care about watching a bunch of stupid people? Like, oh my god. Well, I haven't talked about the box office at all. But yeah, this is just getting really old that, like... Yeah, Finn's character arc was just to be able to stand up against the First Order and defend his friends, and then this character arc is him fighting for the resistance. Yeah, that's clearly what Rian Johnson's trying to do, but it doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. And you're only interpreting the Force Awakens character arc that way because of Last Jedi being so stupid and badly written. If you watched Force Awakens not interpreting the Last Jedi in there, that was him being part of the Resistance at the end. He's on their ship. He's with them. He's joined up with them. What the hell is this deal that he's not a member? The whole thing is him trying to claim he is a member and not, and then he joins. Rey convinces him to fight for the Resistance. His friends convince him to fight for them, like Han's friends did. It wasn't just because of one like... Now that ruins Force Awakens. That makes Force Awakens a more shallow movie. Like, this is just YA-level writing. This is just like, this is at Twilight level. This is the Jacob, Bella, Edward plot lines. This is the Valtori. This is, I mean, this is at a level of bad YA. This is no longer well-written, well-developed stories and character motivations that make sense. Okay, let's get to the box office, shall we? Let's just focus on the big ones here, because this is what we're going to talk about. Deadline Hollywood, who is just blindly defending The Last Jedi for some reason. They wrote that whole article where they said they scientifically debunked the Rotten Tomatoes audience score. They were able to go on and show with scientific data, and they used the cinema score, which is scientific data. Everyone keeps using the word scientific data. They keep using like it's hard science. That they just poll people when they come out of the theater and ask them how they like the movie. And they're like, oh, I liked it. Okay, B, A, cinema score. Terrible movies get high cinema scores all the time. What the hell does the cinema score matter? But then Rotten Tomatoes comes out and tries to say, well, that's not what it was. It wasn't all these... Well, the alt-right claimed that they made all these votes. Oh, so because they claimed it, it's true. And then Deadline wrote about this. Okay, if you went and checked Last Jedi, it had a 68% drop after its opening, which is the biggest drop for a Star Wars movie. Now, that was huge, and nobody saw that coming. And then it did really well the weekend after that on the holiday, where it did 54 million. But I knew the weekend after that it was going to drop. I talked about this, and what are they doing? They're deflecting. Deadline says, well, people have seen the movie 2 to 5 times, so that's why it has such a big drop this weekend. So because people have seen The Last Jedi 2 to 5 times, it's having a big drop this weekend that The Force Awakens never had? Huh. That doesn't make any sense to me. So people love the movie so much that it's dropping? No, it's dropping because when it isn't a holiday weekend, the word of mouth isn't that good. This isn't even going to have a 3 multiplier. 3.5 multiplier. It's going to have like a 2.8. The multiplier on The Last Jedi is not that good. It was front-loaded as hell. Even if you don't want to see it that way, it was. It was super front-loaded. The $220 million opening weekend is still a huge amount of its original gross. It's still $200 million behind The Force Awakens. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still making a lot of money. It's still got tons of profit. But it's now number 3 behind Insidious, The Last Key, and Jumanji. Jumanji came out like just a week after. Now Jumanji has already passed Star Wars. That's crazy. That just shows you how front-loaded it was. I liked The Force Awakens, but Last Jedi not only sucked, but retroactively made Force Awakens a worse movie. It did. It makes Force Awakens a worse movie instead of improving on it, which it could have done. It ruins Force Awakens and makes it even worse. It makes everything that's being handled with these characters in the story even worse. Pollsters gave Hillary a 91% chance of winning. Oh, I know. And then on IMDb, the movie has like a 7.5, and if you bring that up, they say that doesn't matter either. So apparently the Rotten Tomatoes score matters because those are professional critics whose opinions are more valid than anyone else's, and a cinema score matters more, but all the other rating sites don't matter. And then because people saw the movie 2 to 5 times, it's not dropping. No one's trying to say the movie's a bomb or not making money, but nobody wants to see how word of mouth works, okay? Once again, to bring up Batman v Superman, it still made a lot of money. It still made a crap load of money and had a huge opening weekend. Then look what happened with Justice League. That was the after effects of this movie. This still isn't going to be affected because people really like The Force Awakens, so it's getting a lot of that goodwill in Star Wars. This movie, though, will affect the box office of Han Solo, of Episode 9. You're not going to see the results of this until later. It's not going to happen initially on the first movie. Transformers was still making a lot of money up until the recent film. It takes a little while for this to catch on. It doesn't happen immediately. People think like, oh, but it's still making a lot of money. Yeah, it's still making a lot of money, but what about the next film in the series now that this one's more mixed? There's this argument they're trying to prove with scientific data that the majority of people love The Last Jedi, which is ridiculous, and they use all these arbitrary things. And then if someone else uses arbitrary rating systems to say, well, this is actually people who don't like the movie, and then all of a sudden you're a hater or a troll. I mean, really, if you leave the colliders and the people who praise this movie, even everyone on YouTube pretty much gave this a mixed to negative review, and the people who like it in a very shallow way. They don't really give a good explanation as to why it's a great movie. They just talk about why they like it because blah, blah, blah. God, didn't even Chris Stuckman have it on his top 10 list or something? Oh my God, that was embarrassing. That was so embarrassing. I don't know if he had it on there. He might have not. He had Blade Runner at #1, which kudos to him for at least doing that. The Force Awakens apologists were constantly saying that the sequel will fill in all the... I know! That's what I remember is all of my friends who gave me crap for talking about the plot holes in Force Awakens. They all said to me in 2015, the next film will answer this. And if it does, you can... And I go, okay, this film doesn't answer any of those things. And don't tell me, oh, you got answers, not just what you... No, it didn't answer anything. It didn't explain who Snoke was. It didn't explain anything about Rey. It didn't explain the flashbacks, the Knights of Ren, any of that stuff. It didn't explain any of those things. So don't try and tell me it did. It really didn't. It just didn't do anything. Not doing nothing is not explaining. That's just not doing anything. And then now the movie... Now they're defending this movie, and they don't realize by defending this movie, that negates them defending Force Awakens. All the stuff they were apologizing for in that movie is now... You can't defend it anymore because of The Last Jedi. But now they're trying to retroactively change The Force Awakens now to be a better movie. So you just keep changing the movie in your head and for it to suit what you want it to. I love when people add depth to a movie that isn't there. That's really, really interesting. Yeah, IMDb... I agree with you, IMDb ratings are meaningless, but so is CinemaScore. CinemaScore is meaningless. So are Rotten Tomatoes critics' reviews. It's meaningless. But they get to pick and choose what matters. The defenders and places like Deadline go, well, the film has an A CinemaScore, so people love the movie. It's like Daddy's Home 2 has an A CinemaScore. People like that too. It's not a good movie because of the CinemaScore. I mean, if you're telling me a cinema score matters, then an IMDb rating system matters. That you can't just pick. You can't tell me that it's scientific how they poll people on cinema scores. People walking out of the theater, they're gonna be hyperbolic. That's not scientific. Because you come out and you either go, I love the movie or I hate the movie. You're gonna be more passionate coming out of it. But there's the thing. This is a 55% drop. All right. And this film is now falling back behind. Now, let's look at this again. Once again to say, I'm not saying this film is... Disney is keeping 65% of the ticket sales here. The film's made $1.2 billion. It's a hit. Okay, this movie's made money. It's made a lot of money. But it's not even close to the total of The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens made $936 million domestically and $2 billion worldwide. This is not going to make $2 billion worldwide, and it's not going to make $936 million domestically. It's probably going to end somewhere between $650 to $700 something million domestically, which is God, that's a lot less, really, when you think about it. It's over $200 million less, if not more, when we get to the final total. And the worldwide total, which will be from anywhere like 1.3 to 1.5, is going to be a few $100 million less than Force Awakens. Because Force Awakens was a crowd pleaser. People loved it. It had great word of mouth. The holds were insane. None of the drops were big. This movie only had one good hold on a holiday weekend. Every other weekend has been a 50% plus drop. Which I'm not saying is bad because the movie made a lot of money up front, but it was front-loaded. It overperformed on opening weekend, and because of that, the drops have been a lot steeper, while Force Awakens opening weekend was more reflective of how that film's performance was going to be weekend by weekend. This film overhyped a lot of people, and now they're trying to explain it with all these things instead of just accepting that it's having drops because it's not as loved. That doesn't mean people don't like it or aren't going to see it, but a lot of people saw Transformers 2. They didn't just love that movie, they just went to go see it because they liked the first one. Okay, just because a movie makes a lot of money... Spider-Man 3 made a lot of money. People didn't love it, even though it made a lot of money. It still dropped, and then they didn't know what to do with the Spider-Man franchise. Okay, the goodwill from a franchise can only last so long. So the question is, will Episode 9 have a $200-something million opening weekend just off this? And how is Han Solo going to do? I mean, Han Solo's like way up in the air. We don't know how that's going to do, but let's just look at The Last Jedi here. Opening weekend 220, then a 67% drop. Then that 26% drop, which was the holiday and New Year's. And then you come here and you have a 55% drop. Okay, and then, well, I hate to go back. Let's go to The Force Awakens again. Force Awakens, 39%, 39%. And then, yes, here it had that 53% drop, but it never had that 67% drop. In its second and third weekend, it dropped in 39%. So at that point, it had already made $742 million. Last Jedi's at $572 million. Then you get to, yeah, the fourth weekend, and it was $42 million, and it was at $800. Its $26 million fifth weekend is higher than the current weekend of The Last Jedi. So it's not, and I know people, it was never expected to do as well as The Force Awakens, and I get that, but I don't know why we can't talk about, we can't talk about this stuff. I mean, you can't say that the movie dropped. You can't be like, well, hey, this film dropped. And they'd be like, well, it doesn't matter. It's still loved and great. It's like, well, you know, 55% drop's pretty steep. That just shows that the word of mouth maybe isn't as strong as people think. And they're like, well, everyone saw it 4 or 5 times. Yeah, I guess. Why wouldn't they want to go see it another time? Are you still planning an official review of The Last Jedi? Yes. Something more official and less spoilery. It's crazy how much Star Wars makes and Blade Runner gets no love. Well, you know, it's a bigger franchise that sold more merchandise. Disney has already written off the Han Solo. Yeah, they have to. How could you not? It's going to be hard to even make a profit on that movie because you have so much money in it reshooting it. They're going to have to spend so much money to market the movie. I mean, it's going to cost a lot of money to market. And it's just going to be hard for them to turn a profit on it. That's the main issue. It's just going to end up costing them too much money. And, I mean, they're probably going to have like $300 million plus in that film. And it's not a movie like Force Awakens or Last Jedi where you can just assume it's going to make $1 billion. You don't know how well the Han Solo movie's going to do. And I know Rogue One made $1 billion, but that doesn't mean Han Solo's going to make $1 billion. It's a new actor playing Han Solo. Okay, so yeah, Last Jedi, 55% drop, man. I mean, that's a big drop. Even if it had a good week last week. Now, once again, movie's most profitable film of the year, hands down. It's going to be the highest grossing film of the year. But I still think Disney was thinking more 1.8 billion. I think they were thinking more Jurassic World with the worldwide total. This is a little disappointing, only slightly, because it's going to make a lot of profit. But like I said this is going to have a long-term effect. I don't think we'll see the problems with this until further down the road. In my opinion. My opinion. That doesn't mean I'm right. I'm not trying to say I'm right. I'm just giving my opinion here. Man, I hate that I'm missing the Golden Globes. I did not know it was on tonight. I would have done this a lot earlier had I known that. It really drives me crazy. Is it started yet? It's probably starting. It's probably already started. But yeah, my main issue is that, yeah, a lot of the stuff that I bring up is negative. The way that people explain it, they honestly just make the story even more convoluted. To where Force Awakens becomes an even worse movie. To where Force Awakens is just trash now. And it was never that good of a movie to begin with, but it had potential to be improved on. At least Disney is smarter with Warner Bros. And decided to no reshoot the movie, unlike The Last Jedi. Didn't they do reshoots on The Last Jedi, though? And honestly, if we're being true here, Disney does a lot of reshoots. Rogue One, the Han Solo movie. Yeah, apparently the actor playing Han is so bad, they had to reboot most of the movie with an acting coach involved. That's what I've heard, that he's, like, really bad in it. How did he even get cast? How did the guy even get cast if he's not that great of an actor? That's what confuses me. But yeah, that's a big drop. Star Wars is not going to be at the #1 spot, I don't think, again. But anyway, it's already at $572 million. But the real story here is Jumanji. Jumanji 2 is killing it. This film is a huge hit. This isn't just a movie that's a hit now. It's a movie that's a mega hit. I mean, this is honestly one of the big surprise hits like it was this year, Get Out. But even more so in a lot of ways. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, this is going to end up being one of The Rock's most successful movies, everyone involved. I mean, if he didn't have the Fast and Furious franchise, this would be his biggest movie. Now, don't get me wrong, Insidious: The Last Key had a great opening weekend. Let's just talk about the Insidious franchise here and writer Leigh Whannell, who, if you don't know, was the guy who wrote the screenplay to the original Saw that James Wan directed. And I believe he wrote Saw 2. But he came in to direct the third Insidious film, which I actually thought was the best one from a writing standpoint, but a terribly directed film. But that film cost $10 million and had a $22 million opening weekend and made $112 million worldwide. The second Insidious, directed by the first one, cost $1.5 million and made $97 million worldwide. So that was a big hit. Insidious Chapter 2 actually had a huge opening weekend of $40 million. Now, that was James Wan coming off the hype of The Conjuring. It's actually pretty crazy. He had The Conjuring and Insidious 2 come out the same year. Then he did Furious 7 2 years later. Then he did The Conjuring 2. He's having a great box office track record as a director. So this film, yeah, cost $5 million and made $161 million worldwide. So this is actually a better opening weekend than Part 3. Which I was not expecting. I was expecting something closer to $20 million. This is closer to $30 million. So with a $10 million budget, $49 million already worldwide, this is another Blumhouse production that is going to make a lot of profit. It's another hit for Leigh Whannell. And it's honestly a better opening weekend than I was expecting. And that was impressive. I thought this was going to open a lot lower. It shows once again that just like last year where horror movies were doing really well and making high profits, this is also a good year for horror movies, just starting off. Kathleen Kennedy should be in check because she fired 3 directors. I agree. There's too much chaos. Too much chaos behind the scenes. Something has to be wrong from a production standpoint. She's not hiring people correctly if that's happening so much. If it happened once, it would be okay, but it keeps happening. A lot. Which is getting weird. The defense of The Last Jedi reminds me of the DCU fans try to defend Batman. Oh, it's exactly like Batman v Superman. And the impact's going to be the same where we're going to get Justice League. I heard the actor who played Han Solo was being a bad sport on set, and Kathleen Kennedy did that to make him publicly look bad. Jesus, I hope that's not true. I mean, she's just not very talented. I don't know where people get this idea Kathleen Kennedy was a genius or something. She really wasn't. All of the stuff she worked on that was great was, the majority of it was Spielberg and her husband, Frank Marshall, or Lucas, or all those people, like, and hundreds of other crew. Like, she was not the genius behind all of those things. She never was. Kathleen Kennedy was never the person behind all that great stuff. I don't know why she's getting that kind of pedigree. She was just somebody who got her name put on. I mean, she was there and involved in it, but she wasn't like the head mind of that at all on any of those things. Like, so I don't know why they said, oh, well, they should give her Star Wars. They should have brought someone in who knew Star Wars more. Like, she's not like Kevin Feige with Marvel. He's that nerd and he knows all the stuff about comics. She doesn't even. Why didn't they hire some, I don't know, some producer who always wanted to do Star Wars and give him or her their shot? Why keep Kathleen Kennedy around? She was part of, like, the old school, you know? And I think she's having a hard time producing these films in a factory way where you have to make a movie a year. That's great. You know, they didn't used to do that. They didn't make a movie a year like that. So I don't think she can deal with the pressure of it. I think it's too much for her to come up with all these side stories. I think part of the reason JJ's coming back is to try and fix some of the things about. I do. I feel that way totally. Molly's Game is an Amy Pascal film, so Pat, take that into account. Well, that doesn't bother me. It's also written by Aaron Sorkin, and he's a libtard, but you know, and his Twitter's cringe. But I still love his screenplays and his writing. A movie can have a message I don't agree with or characters that I don't really like, and I could still think it's a good movie. I'm sure Molly's Game is still a good movie despite all that. I mean, Amy Pascal was behind the Steve Jobs movie, and I really like that movie. So that doesn't necessarily bother me. Okay, but yeah, Insidious: The Last Key did great, and Star Wars dropped pretty steep, which everyone should have guessed from last weekend holding so well. Once again, it's like the opening weekend. It's overperforming on some weekends and then dropping steeper. A lot of this has to do with the release date and the holidays, and Jumanji overperforming and so on. But Star Wars is still the most successful film of 2017, no matter how you try and spin it. But Insidious, man, great performance. Great for Blumhouse, start of the year. Let's look at Jumanji, man. Crazy box office for this movie. I said last week the final total could be anywhere from 500 to 600 million. Not only was I wrong about that, I think I'm going to be very wrong. The film's only been out for a few weeks. Its opening weekend was 36 million. Now, it opened a few days before that. But if you look, 36 million, and it had made 52 million up until that point, and then 55 million, 71 million over the holiday. I think it opened on a Wednesday and went to the Christmas weekend. But then in the weekend after that, it held to 50 million, which was plus 38%. And then that ended up being 66 million. And then this weekend, it goes back to 36 million, which was its opening weekend. So in just a few weeks of release, the film has not dropped below its opening weekend number. The film so far has made $244 million domestic on a $90 million budget, and it's made $275 million internationally for a $519 million worldwide gross. This is a major hit. This film is huge. You got to think about it. Now, I'm sure The Rock has a lot of back end and Kevin Hart and Jack Black, but still, this could make $300 million domestically. Did anyone think Jumanji 2 was going to make $300 million domestically? The first Jumanji, adjusted for ticket price inflation, only made $200 million domestic. This film is going to make more domestically than the original. That doesn't happen much when an IP can come back like this, a sequel IP. Not only that, it's making more than the original. It's like it forgot it had a soft opening weekend. Yeah, no, it's... I like Jumanji 2 more than this movie, than the first one, but I get why people think the first movie's better. Here's my argument for that. The first movie is trying to be a Spielberg-esque classic. It's trying to be a classic family film, and I think it fails at being a classic. I think it's an entertaining film, but I think Joe Johnston failed to make a great classic family film. Jumanji 2 is just trying to be a very pleasing comedy movie vehicle for these actors, and I think on that level it exceeds expectations. It's better than it should be. While Jumanji 1 is kind of a failure for what it's trying to accomplish, to be this great movie, this great special effects movie and stuff like that. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's a better made movie. It's a better acted movie, the first Jumanji. You know, it's got better stuff about it for sure. But I think you have to view each movie for what it sets out to do. Jumanji 1 is really trying to be like a great film. It's trying to do something. It's trying to be, you know, like an E.T. or a Gremlins or something, and I think it fails to reach those levels. Jumanji 2 is just trying to be an entertaining video game movie with these actors, and I think it's way above what it's. That's all I think. It's that it's a surprisingly okay movie. Jumanji 1 should be a great movie, not just an okay movie. I really like The Rock. I've been waiting for him to be in something good. Hey, I tell all of you, this is a good movie for kids. This is a fine family film. It's a decent video game movie. It's Jack Black's best performance in years. Who knows where Jumanji 2 will stop with this repetition of its opening weekend? It could. I agree. I agree with you. This is one of the big surprise hits of 2017. I really like this. Who's your favorite character? I don't know who you're talking about. I don't know what we're speaking about. Who's your favorite? His death was very moving. I don't know whose death are we talking about? Ray's got ass, Fallon. I'm sorry you don't see that. I mean, she's got a little bit of a butt, but not much of one. I'm not really a fan of Daisy Ridley's. I mean, her body's all right. Like, she clearly works out. She's kind of, you know, she's got those kind of muscular legs, and I've seen her deadlift 175 pounds in a video, and she unfortunately has one of those boyish kind of bodies, like a lesser version of Taylor Swift, because Taylor Swift's body's sort of that way, but Taylor Swift pulls it off. But yeah, it's that just kind of like where you're straight, you don't have a lot of shape to you. Yeah, Daisy Ridley doesn't have much shape to her. Not that she has to, I don't care. But it's kind of like she's like a bad version of Sigourney Weaver's, like, more masculine kind of body type. You're really late today. You're so late you're pregnant. But yeah, if we just look at the actors involved with this, this is The Rock's biggest movie outside of the Fast and Furious franchise. Well, you know, I mean, I know Moana, but I don't count those films because those are animated and it's voice acting. I think it's a lot different. Because the animation is what sells the movies a lot of the time in that regard. Well, I'd argue Fast and the Furious makes a lot of money because of Vin Diesel and The Rock and those actors. And like Paul Walker dying and how well Furious 7 did. The actors are associated with the franchise. But yeah, geez, for The Rock, this is a huge moment for him. Kevin Hart. This is going to be Kevin Hart's biggest movie. Kevin Hart has never had a film this big. His biggest movie is an animated film, too. Live action, this is his biggest film domestically and worldwide. Same with Jack Black, outside of Kung Fu Panda. And honestly, this could pass Kung Fu Panda. It's going to be tough to do, but it's not impossible. The film's already at $520 million. I don't know how many markets it's open in worldwide, but... Could somebody keep me up to date on the Golden Globes if it's on right now? She does have an olive oil body. That's a great, yeah. She's like an attractive Shelley. If the Globes are on right now, or anyone tell me who's winning or something in the chat so I can know? Because I really want to know who's winning, because it's going to help with my predictions later. I kind of fantasy football with people on Oscar predictions, and I like to win, so... I don't think she's a very good actress either. I wish she was, but she's just kind of like... It's like she's never acted in her life. I don't think Daisy Ridley's unattractive. Daisy Ridley is hot, but they don't really dress her up for the part, but she's always rocking the baggy tom. I mean, I think her face is nice, but I don't think her body's that great. She's okay looking. But she does have a pretty face when I see her red carpets. No, it's funny, when you see her in interviews and see her in other stuff, she's really charming and funny, and she smiles a lot, and she's happy, and she has a nice face, and she has nice makeup on, and then you see her in The Force Awakens and Last Jedi, and they just make her this really boring, tomboyish character with a lack of charisma. Like, she's actually in real life seems like somebody that's kind of goofy and fun, and they don't want to let her be a fun character. Like, Rey is really boring. Like, I really wish Rey had, like, more of a sense of humor and just had more to her. Like, people complain about Luke being whiny, but Luke being whiny was at least his character. You know, that was part of Mark Hamill's performance, and he got less whiny with each movie. I don't really know what Rey's personality is. Is she a bitch? Is she stoic? Is she? I mean, what? I don't really even kind of. You know, you could say Luke in New Hope. He was a whiny kid. Empire, arrogant kid, who was blindly loyal to his friends to a degree that it could get him hurt. Return of the Jedi, mature, but still had that emotional vulnerability to where he believed in Vader. I'm a master Oscar party prediction winner. Maybe it's Jewish, but I have a feeling you've been wrong for the last few years, though, because everyone's been wrong for the last few years. Like, the Oscars, they've been changing the rules the last, like, 5 years because of the new way the votes are handled, where a number 2 voted film can win now. So it's very tough to predict things. Oh, so the Golden Globes haven't started yet. Okay. I was just making sure. I didn't know if they were on right now. I don't think she's bad. Look, I'm not saying Daisy Ridley's unattractive. No, I'm not saying that. I don't care. Like, I don't care about looks of actors. Like I said, Humphrey Bogart was a dog, and he's one of my favorite actors, but... Luke whines for like 5 lines. I hate that complaint. I know. He only whines when he's on Tatooine with his uncle and aunt, which is when you would be whining. It would suck to live on Tatooine. Could you imagine how boring and crappy Luke's life was? I was just thinking about something, how the prequels really do something so stupid that ruins the original trilogy. Okay, so if the idea was to hide Luke and Leia away from Darth Vader, the whole idea was to hide him from them, right? So that Vader and them couldn't find Luke or Leia. And that's at the end of Revenge of the Sith. That's what Obi-Wan does. He separates Luke and Leia. And he takes Luke to Tatooine. So, okay, so because of the prequels, now Anakin's character, we know, has met Owen and Aunt Beru, or Peru, whatever. He met them in Attack of the Clones. So Anakin has met them and knows who they are and knows where they live. And the one guy was married to his mother. Okay? And then Obi-Wan takes him to that planet where Anakin was from, because George Lucas made it that way, where Anakin was on Tatooine, and this was connected. And then because of that, and then he goes there and leaves him and gives him the same name, Skywalker. So there's a kid living on Tatooine with the last name Skywalker. And at no point does the Empire ever go there or find this out. And it's not even a secret. He's openly named Luke Skywalker. So because George Lucas made the prequels, he made the original trilogy make less sense. So the plan was separate them, send Leia to Alderaan, give her a new name that hides her identity. But for some reason now Luke is on the planet his father is from, which is the worst place you could hide that character. And that was not how it came off in the original trilogy. It came off in the original trilogy that Luke just lived on Tatooine and it wasn't associated with Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader. When Vader says, "I'm your father," you don't immediately think, oh, well, he used to race on Tatooine and is from there. So now Obi-Wan's plan was to hide Luke in the most obvious place possible and not change his name? What was George Lucas thinking? That makes it so stupid now. How did the Empire not find Luke? What, are they that incompetent at finding anyone? He has the last name of a character who's famous. Anakin Skywalker is famous if you're going off the prequels. So if Anakin Skywalker is so famous and everyone knows his last name, and they know that he knows he raced pods and that's where they found him, God, how would nobody know? I don't get this. Like, even Rogue One now that they established Vader lives on the lava planet from Revenge of the Sith. So they even established that Darth Vader's character goes back to places from his past, like the lava planet. So wouldn't Tatooine be a place he would go to occasionally? Like, even if they didn't find him, what a terrible plan by Obi-Wan and Yoda. Let's hide this kid by putting him in the most obvious place possible. That's what the prequels do with that story. If they were trying to hide Luke from Vader, why did they keep his last name as Skywalker? It doesn't make any sense. That's what I'm saying about the prequels. None of it makes sense. According to some random book, Vader couldn't go to Tatooine because it brought back painful memories. Well then, why did he go to the lava planet in Rogue One? That didn't bring back painful memories? Like, what about those painful memories? Like, so... God, the new films and the prequels really don't make any sense. They really make the original trilogy make a lot less sense now. Like, lightsabers make less sense now. The Force makes light sense now. You can weaponize light speed, which I know Han talks about in New Hope, that you can just crash into something. But it's like, now it's just going to make you question the continuity of these other films. It's turned into the X-Men franchise where the continuity's scatterbrained. Now none of it makes any sense. None of the stuff in the OT makes any sense now from the context we get from the prequels and these new movies. Now you're just going, well, why didn't this character do that in Empire Strikes Back? Why didn't this character do that in Return of the Jedi? But he hates sand, don't you remember? Sand, I hate it. It gets everywhere. Yeah, I don't... Yeah, why... Yeah, wouldn't people be looking for the twins? Wouldn't Palpatine know the twins exist? I mean, wouldn't he be able to feel in the Force that there's two children out there? I'm just going off what the prequels gave us. I'm not talking about the original trilogy, because the original trilogy didn't do all that because it was well written. But the prequels kind of make it like, wait, so now you hide Luke by putting him... Like, because at least hiding Leia makes sense. They leave her with people, and they change her name, and she's secretly Leia Skywalker. She's not Leia. You know, she's Leia Organa, or Organa Leia, or whatever. So that works. But Luke's name is still Skywalker, and that last name is famous throughout the galaxy. Because of Darth Vader. If I was evil, I'd live in a dumb lava castle. Yeah, me too. Even though he lived on a sand planet. Pat, sand got in Vader's vagina, okay? Alright. Hey, by the way, Bathory, last week when the mic was still playing, and everybody was listening to my, like, 15-minute conversation I had with my girlfriend, you should have handled that better. You're lucky that I don't demod you. You little rogue, you. I mean, I'm very upset with you, Bathory. I saw what you were saying in the chat afterwards. Like, there was 12 people, and then you're like, I enjoy eavesdropping. I like being Snoopy. This is fun. And it's like, oh, I see. You're gonna Brutus me, huh? Only loyal when I'm around. As soon as I leave, you try to Darth Vader Luke Skywalker me and be like, you can overthrow the Emperor. I have seen it. I think you and Blood Money, your fallen angel, get together and talk about overthrowing me. I won't have it, Bathory. I will end you, if need be. Understand this. I will end you, whatever that means. I'll demod you and then make someone else a mod, and I'll have them mute you every time you say anything ever. Every time you come in here, so you can never write anything ever again. I'll just make it a constant thing where someone else is constantly muting you. You're like, damn you, Bathory, you're supposed to be my sidekick. You're supposed to have my back. You should have muted everyone in chat and be like, don't listen to his private conversation. I was going to start this episode, because, yeah, last week the mic was still going. Yeah, I was going to say that at 2, Bathory. That's what I was going to say, because so many of you listened last week after the fact. And enough people left. Yes, it did happen. Well, what happened was, yeah, I thought the show was over, and I went to go hit stop streaming. And then it didn't hit stop streaming. And I walked away, and I didn't know that there was still... The mic was still on, because I just had the music playing. Sorry, my throat's getting clogged up. Your conversation with your girlfriend was very intelligent. Nothing to be embarrassed about. I thought there was a lot of stuff in that conversation to be embarrassed about. I thought there was a lot of things we said that I don't think I would say on a YouTube video, actually. I was very embarrassed about the stuff that was said there. But I was, we went upstairs, and a lot of people quit listening once they realized that the mic was still on, and I heard the music playing. And then I come downstairs with my girlfriend, and we start having a conversation about morality that's carrying over from the conversation that I was having with you guys. And we talked for like 15 minutes, and I had no idea any of you were listening. And I went and looked at it later, and it's so funny, at the end of the live stream, I come on and go, hey, oh, wait. And then I'm like, oh, no. But then I go look, and the whole time Bathory's there just clapping. I'm like... And it's like, oh, I see what you're up to. I know what this is. Yeah, I'm glad some of you guys don't remember some of the stuff. I mean, I say pretty screwed up stuff to my girlfriend in private conversations, because that's just how I talk. I don't really have a filter with her. But it was stuff I would not say on YouTube so bluntly. But, it was just really funny. So I was thinking about this week, I was going to keep the mic going at the end and try to trick some of you guys. And then I was just going to sit here for the last 5 minutes and just talk bad about Bathory and how much I hate her. And get her to think that I'm actually, like, you know, doing it. I was going to fake live record for you guys, like, and talk trash about every single one of you. That's the only thing I regret about last week, is that I didn't become more aware that you guys were listening, so I could have just said a bunch of screwed up stuff. I could have just went all Richard Spencer on you for like 10 minutes or something. And you guys would be like, no! And I hear, though, we'd catch you and your girlfriend doing the dirt. Yeah, can you... That's the thing. Think about that. Do you leave that portion for the... No, I did not. I took it out. I took out the last part. No. I have it saved. I have the audio from it, but it's no longer on YouTube. Here's the issue. If me and my girlfriend were together hanging out, what if we had started doing stuff together? What if we had started making out and touching each other and getting to the point where it would get sexual? You guys would all have been listening to that. See, that makes me very uncomfortable to know that you guys would have listened to that. And I know Bathory would have. And some of you. So it's like very... it freaks me out. It's too voyeuristic for me. I get bothered. It's creepy to me when people are listening to you when you don't know they are, or when they're watching you when you don't know they are. That stuff really creeps me out, and it's creepy to know that, like, people are listening to your conversations. I didn't say anything that bad. It was just I was saying some screwed up stuff kind of jokingly, but some of the stuff I said was like... Because we were talking about our morality, and if objective morality existed, and we were trying to break it down. But yeah, me and her talked about it. It's like, oh, what if we'd been having sex? It would have been... people would have been listening to us have sex. Or something like that. So... yeah, why not you? It's not my thing. That's not my thing. One day we will catch you guys doing the naughties, and we'll upload it on 4chan. I mean, I don't want you guys to sit there for a few minutes listening to the sounds of my girlfriend's disappointment. I have to hear those sounds myself. I don't need the internet to hear it. It just cuts deep. I know. I'm just giving you guys crap. I don't care. I'm just giving you guys some crap for it, because why not? God, I need some water. Alright, hold on. I'm going to go take a break to get some water. I'll play some music so you guys get a quick break, and then we'll come back and keep going with the box office. Pat porn. Yeah, it's a whole subgenre. But yeah, just Jumanji. Just to wrap this up real quick on this. Jake Kasdan's film, who is I believe the son of Lawrence Kasdan, directed Zero Effect and did a horrible job directing Orange County and Bad Teacher and Sex Tape. His biggest hit was Bad Teacher, but this puts him to a whole nother level. When you have a film do this well, this leads to sequels and getting offered other jobs. And I can't see how they wouldn't make a sequel to this film. And at this point, it looks like it could make $650 million worldwide, possibly, if not more. So, oh my God, you're so right. Last week, we all talked about the movie Cachet and went into it very in-depth and talked about the voyeurism of it, people watching you when you're not there. That was like a half-hour conversation on that movie. And then at the end of the damn episode, I get Cachet. You guys, oh my God, wow. I guess it is like poetry. It does rhyme. I guess George Lucas was right. Alright, I'll be right back. Quick break. Alright, and we are back. Sorry about that. Cachet predicted the future. It all makes sense. So which one of you is French Algerian? Oh my God. See, if you make the answer be nothing, then it's complex. So this was a weird box office Addict. I'm not sure I'm too happy with it. We spent the first hour complaining about Star Wars. Well, I did. Which I gotta stop. I gotta cut this Last Jedi crap. And I'm not even talking about the box office anymore. Were you present for the wedding of our commander? I know you do movies, not games, but you could consider doing a video about Final Fantasy or rather the current state of the series. I might do some video game videos down the road. I definitely want to do more videos on comic books. And just books. I'd like to talk about books more. So the story of the weekend is Jumanji 2. It's all about Jumanji 2. Jumanji 2 is doing amazing. Insidious had a great opening weekend, and Star Wars is making a lot of money. When you take it all as a whole, not this weekend itself. This isn't that impressive of a weekend, but it's been doing really well on the weekday and all that stuff. But man, crazy for Jumanji. That's Sony, man. That's got to be Sony's biggest surprise from last year. Because Spider-Man, you know, a lot of that was Marvel and Downey Jr. and the tie-in to Civil War. And all that stuff was really well set up by Marvel to help Sony with that. And then Baby Driver was a surprise hit, but it had really good marketing. I don't think anyone knew how well Jumanji was going to do. A lot of people thought this movie was going to bomb. I remember reading that from a lot of people in the chat especially, and now it's one of the biggest hits of 2017. Well, it's 2018, but it came out last year. So for Sony, that's a very good moment for them. That's one of those few things for them. Because Warner Brothers had It last year, and that really helped them out. Star Wars matters a lot. I don't know why. I don't really know why either. I don't know why we all take this franchise so seriously and talk about it so much, and it's just a franchise that's like, it's not that different from so many other franchises. I don't know why we give Star Wars this special treatment. It's really just because of Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back is the only thing that holds the whole series up. If we just had New Hope Star Wars, there wouldn't be all this crap. It's because Empire came out and elevated sci-fi fantasy to another level, and it was a great film, a truly great film that made everything about New Hope better. And Return of the Jedi screwed a lot of that up, but Empire is just, the whole series is built off of it. What they did with the Darth Vader twist, what they did with the Yoda, what they did with Luke's character, what they did with the Hoth, all that stuff has just put Star Wars over the top forever. That movie's so great that it makes the entire franchise and the lore of it seem way more fascinating than it is. I'd like book reviews and underrated classic video games. That's a good idea, the underrated classic video game. I like that idea. I might do that. There's a lot of those, actually, though. That series might actually even do better in video games. Anyone watch the recent underrated classics on the Brady Bunch movie? Anyone a Brady Bunch movie fan out there? I always liked that movie a lot. Also, did you guys like the new trailer I made for the channel? I never had a trailer for my channel. I just made that promo yesterday. Art influences society. They gave Tom Rothman after being from Fox. Oh, yeah, Sony? Yeah. I think it's the fact that Lucas didn't run the franchise into the ground the first time and it built a manic fan base. I think it's partially that, but I really do think it was Empire. I mean, Empire really is like, you got to think about it. Without that movie, all the iconic stuff and a lot of the things that really make Star Wars what it is come from that movie. I mean, really, the Darth Vader twist is really the aspect that kind of makes Star Wars what it is in a lot of ways. That's like the iconic moment of Star Wars. And it's the thing that changed everything, you know? And, you know, Han getting frozen. I mean, that film made everything seem more complex and deep and have these wonderful plot threads, and it left all these things open, and that just, yeah, if it wasn't for that, I think Star Wars would just be a great movie. Like Gremlins was a great movie, or the first Terminator was a great movie, or, you know, Raiders of the Lost Ark. But Empire came out, and it was so great and took it to another level that it made the entire franchise more interesting to people. People wanted way more of this universe because we did want more. Every time Empire's over, I'm always so sad because we never got that film that really followed up that film properly. Because you could tell by Return of the Jedi, Lucas and them just wanted to end the movie and they didn't want to do it anymore. But when you get done with Empire, man, it has that feeling of like, man, you could tell 100 stories in this universe. There's so much here, thematically and all that, and then it just kept going more and more out. How could the Brady Bunch be underrated if it got a sequel? Just because a movie gets a sequel doesn't mean that the film isn't underrated from my perception. Underrated or overrated is based off your perception of what you think a film should reach. The film got a sequel because it made a profit. Because it was a low-budget movie. I believe the film should have made more money. And also, I'm saying it's underrated now. It got a sequel back in the 90s because the first film made money. The second movie actually bombed in the theater. And I think people forget about it today. Nobody talks about that movie anymore. The Brady Bunch movie's not that popular anymore. It's not like a Blu-ray that's going off the shelves. It's not super popular on the internet. People don't make videos about it. It's not referenced that much anymore. It was a really popular movie for my generation in the 90s when it came out, and the sequel was too. But as time has gone on, the movies have become less and less popular. I think the film was... a movie doesn't have to be underrated on its initial release. Or overrated. Like, I think the Brady Bunch movie did really well when it was first released. I talked about that in my video. But as time has gone on, people have really overlooked it as a great comedy movie. They think it was just a film that was successful in the 90s, and it hasn't held up. It holds up great. It's aged wonderfully, and it's just as funny. And it only has 18,000 votes on IMDb. The second film doesn't even have like 10,000 votes. If you go look on websites, there's nobody I mean, there's not really a lot of people talking about it. It's very overlooked, so that's why I think it's underrated. I think it should be talked about a lot more. It's a great movie. Both movies are great, and there's definitely a fan base out there, but it was always kind of a cult following, or people who just remembered seeing it back in the day on cable or renting it. I feel The Color of Money is underrated, even though I agree. I agree. A movie can still... because it's your view of what underrated or overrated is. If you think the movie deserves more, it's underrated. If you think a film gets overpraised, it's overrated. It's a subjective thing. You can't just say, oh, this is overrated or underrated based off numbers. It's like when something's disappointing. Disappointment is just based off how your expectations are set. Something's only disappointing to you if it doesn't reach what you wanted it to, but if your expectations are different, you wouldn't be disappointed. As time has gone by, the Brady Bunch reboot has become indistinguishable from the original series. That's the thing. Nobody talks about it anymore as its own movie. That's its own thing. People just talk about the Brady Bunch now in a very broad, generalized way. There's not really that separation of what that movie was doing and the Brady Bunch itself. And nobody talks about the actors anymore and what they brought to that movie, and a lot of the characterization and a lot of the... and Betty Thomas, the director, and all that. I really wanted to make that video about her because I think she's an underrated director. You know, I think people overlook what she did with Private Parts. I think Private Parts works mainly because of her, because she kept it together. Amadeus may be showing up soon on my favorite film list. Pat, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? I'll start. I'm 25. Oh, well, that's very sweet of you. I am 27, and in the next 3 months, I will be turning 28 years old. So I will be 28. So let's just round it off and say 28. I was born in 1990. I am the millennial. That is right. That's right there. I think Phantom Menace is a little underrated. I don't think it's a good movie, but I think people don't appreciate things about it that are good. Like me considering Clint Eastwood underrated as a director. Yes, depending on how people react to it or don't act to it. You have to view it from your own perception of what you think. That's it. That's what underrated classics is. It's just my idea of movies I think deserve more. Even look at the reviews for the Brady Bunch movie got mixed reviews. It got 63% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics just said it was okay. I think it's better than that. I think it's really good. I think it deserved great reviews. That's the thing. I think the movie deserves more acclaim. It's got a 5.9 on IMDb. I mean, you would think that people didn't like the movie or that it's a bad movie if you based it off that, and the movie's actually pretty good. And that's all I'm saying is that it's a film that, why is it not rated higher on these websites? Why are people talking about it more positively? It's a good movie. Oh yeah, for sure, Eastwood did get 2 Oscar wins for directing, but see, a lot of people hate Clint Eastwood as a director. A lot of people, especially today, criticize Clint Eastwood as a director because the Oscar, if you don't care about an Academy Award and you think it's just this arbitrary award stroke fest, you don't care that he won an Oscar. You care about how people you care about talk about him and all that stuff. Like, that's the, Empire script is amazing.
Leia Brackett's original script is fascinating to read. Plus, Lawrence Kasdan is prime for the cleanup. Exactly. The Empire script's just on another level. The script of that movie elevates the entire Star Wars franchise, and it's why it's held on to this day. Nobody wants to give that credit to Empire. They want to give it to George Lucas or the merchandise. Or it's not that. It's Empire. Empire solidified Star Wars. New Hope launched it. Empire solidified it forever. It's that good of a movie. It's so good that they could make 100 terrible movies after that, and people are still clinging on to get back to that place Empire took them. Everyone wants that again, that feeling that movie has, because it's such a great movie. It's a great film, first. Not just a good Star Wars movie. It's a great film all around. Great acting, great writing, great directing, everything. It's just a great movie. And that's the thing about it, is that it elevated the franchise and the artistry of it to another level. And the franchise has never been able to get there again. Because it's just a great film, and great films don't happen often like that. That was just a crazy thing that Irvin Kershner made it, that Lawrence Kasdan got involved with writing it, that, you know, it was just all those factors coming together that made it a great movie. It wasn't one single element. It was everything that made it great. You know, the fact that Darth Vader became such an iconic villain, and then they were able to develop that character more and give him more to do, and he ended up being one of the great characters in movies, and it's just a lot of those things. They add up. They add up, you know. No one notices how awesome he directed what is my favorite shootout in Pell Rider. I think a lot of people like his shootout. I just don't think people talk about it anymore unless you're a film buff. If you're a film buff, you know those movies. Outlaw, Josie Wells. Was it Jesse I can't remember, damn. But The Outlaw, his first movie he directed. Pell Rider, High Plains Drifter. All really good. Really good flicks. Are you saying that Attack of the Clones isn't as good as Empire? Hey, Pat, I have found myself playing older games more than AAA. Well, that's because older games, a lot of them have aged wonderfully, especially the 16-bit era. George Lucas barely had any influence on Empire. He wasn't even that crucial to Return's success. I know. I actually think he was pretty crucial to a lot of Return of the Jedi. Like, he pretty much pushed Richard Marquand around. That seems to be confirmed by almost everyone who's wrote or talked about that movie. But, yeah, well, the thing about Empire is that George had a certain kind of film style that he had from American Graffiti and Star Wars, that documentary-esque kind of the thing he was going for. Then Irvin Kershner comes in and directs it with this very beautiful, rendered, dramatic focus. He makes it more operatic. The original Star Wars, it's kind of space opera, but it's more just a typical fantasy movie. It's Wizard of Oz. Empire is where it became opera, where it became tragedy and dramatic and poetic, and a lot of that was the script, and then it was Irvin Kershner's direction being done in that way, and then Return of the Jedi kind of took it all back to, this is an adventure story. And I think Rian Johnson was trying to take it back to that place where it's more artful, but at the same time he had to make a Star Wars movie, and it's a contradiction at the same time. It's tough to find that balance. It's so hard to find the balance between a blockbuster and like an art movie at once. I don't think it's easy to do. And I don't think he had the good setup that Kershner did from Star Wars. I think Force Awakens wasn't a great setup movie for him to go into Last Jedi. Unforgiven is great, and that became yeah. I mean, Unforgiven's the greatest Western of all time, probably, if we're being objective. I like other movies better. Like, I prefer The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. I prefer, like, Rio Bravo. I prefer The Searchers. But if we're just talking script, dialogue, and all that, I don't really think there's anything better than Unforgiven. I really can't think of anything that has dialogue that good. Even Tombstone has a bunch of great lines, but, like, Unforgiven's, like, I mean, it's... it's one of the great movie scripts. It was written in the 70s, and Eastwood didn't change a word till it was made. And it's just an amazing movie. Everything about it, every line is perfect. It's one of the, I mean, it's got lines like David Mamet would write or something. Or I mean, it's one of the great screenplays of movies. And all the subtext and the deconstruction and the revisionism and the Old West and Clint Eastwood playing that role and him directing it, all that being so meta. And, I mean, in anyways, it's the definitive Western because it's designed that way. It's designed to be the ultimate Western, commenting on Westerns. And that just no other Western I don't think was able to really do that. Heck, High Noon's a movie that I probably even enjoy watching more than Unforgiven, but Unforgiven's just a great film. It's so smart. Once again, Wild Bunch I think's a great film. Great film, but I don't think it has even half anything on Unforgiven screenplay. That screenplay in Unforgiven is a masterwork. The speech Eastwood gives about killing a man, hell of a thing to kill a man, take away everything he is, everything he's ever going to be. I mean, oh my God. I mean, it's the ultimate Western film. I mean, it's the death of that kind of character, of the man with no name. And it's just a commentary on violence. I mean, it's the only Western to even have that kind of, I don't know, that kind of intellectual rigor to it, that it even has that kind of, that it's even willing to address these things in this almost realistic, because even The Wild Bunch is ultimately a fantasy. It's Peckinpah doing what he does, which I love. But I really, yeah, I've seen a lot of Westerns. I've never seen one that has the depth of Unforgiven. Unforgiven has more depth in character, and the dialogue has more depth than any other Western I've ever seen. And it's not even that it's better directed or more entertaining. It just has the conceit of the film is just so genius. It's really a genius idea. Off topic, but what do you think of Donnie Darko? When it initially came out, it was one of my favorite movies of all time, if not in my top 20. I was obsessed with it when I was a teenager. I went to DonnieDarko.com. I spent hours trying to figure out what the movie was. I thought Richard Kelly was a modern-day genius. I bought the Blu-ray, and then the director's cut was out. And I was so excited for the director's cut of Donnie Darko. And you have to understand, before Donnie Darko, before more stuff happened, we all, Richard Kelly hadn't made, like, Southland Tales and wrote the script to Domino. So the idea was that Richard Kelly was still great. Then you see the director's cut to Donnie Darko, and it's awful. It's awful, and it ruins the movie. And you realize that all that stuff you thought that was cool about Donnie Darko, I've seen Lonesome Dove 3 times. What are you talking about? I love Lonesome Dove. Great film. I don't really count it as a movie because it's like a 12-hour miniseries, so I don't really consider it to be a movie. I know people want to say it's a movie, but I don't consider miniseries to be movies. They're more like novels. That's more like reading a book. It's long-form storytelling. I was saying that Unforgiven is the greatest Western movie with traditional film structure to ever be written. I don't count. I'm sorry. I just don't count Lonesome Dove or miniseries as movies. I think that they're their own thing. I think that's a television show. I think that's like saying The Sopranos is better than Goodfellas. Well, yeah, The Sopranos is 6 seasons of Goodfellas. I don't agree with that. I love Lonesome Dove, but I just don't consider it to be a movie. I never have. But I get why people would, but then I think I just never did. I never thought miniseries were. I still don't. It's like trying to say Game of Thrones is a movie or something. Ever seen TNT's presentation of Treasure Island? I believe I did. That sounds familiar. Is it the one with Tim Curry? It's just a donation. What are you talking about? I'm confused. Because they are failed novelists and don't want to lose their small amount of power. Plus, Eastwood made the Remington new model army cooler than any machine gun. True. Yeah, not knocking Lonesome Dove though. Lonesome Dove's amazing. It's an amazing piece of work, but yeah, I think miniseries you can't, because part of what's making a movie is that movies are limited to this length, that you have to tell a story in a certain amount of time. TV eliminates that issue, or a miniseries. When you say that you can have unlimited character development because you have hours to tell the story, well, it's not really a movie as much anymore. It's something else. It's a different kind of thing. Game of Thrones isn't a movie. It has movie production values, but it's a show. Like, a TV show can spend years telling a story, or a miniseries can spend 12 hours telling a story. Movies don't get to be 12 hours. So you have to kind of view them differently. It's a different way of writing a story. A show's more like a book. It's more like a novel. Whereas a movie is much less like that. Movies can be literary, but they kind of have their own visual way of being told in a 2-hour, 90-minute format. You like the director's cut of Donnie Darko? Jesus. Well, yeah, Unforgiven's not even my favorite Western. I just think it's the best Western. I know the guy who asked me the Donnie Darko question gave me a $5 donation. I saw it. TNT presentation of Treasure Island. I don't... Do you mean just showing the original movie like they presented it, or their own version of the movie? Did they do like an original TV movie of Treasure Island? Let me go to the Donnie Darko thing, though, okay? I mean, I agree, Game of Thrones sucks now. It didn't suck in the first 3 seasons. It sucks now, yes. If you think the first 3 seasons of Game of Thrones sucks, you just have bad taste. But, yeah, Game of Thrones now is awful. Yes. Like when somebody said, they go, Rian Johnson with Last Jedi, he tried to make the Game of Thrones of the Star Wars films. I go, well, he accomplished that. He did Game of Thrones Season 7 of the Star Wars series. He really was trying to be George Martin with that movie. You should do box office, then do a separate stream where we all just BS. Is there a breakdown on how the director's cut ruins Donnie? Oh, I can explain it right here to you guys why it ruined Donnie Darko. Hey, Pat, do you think Square Enix is kind of stupid? Yes. Anyway, Donnie Darko, the part that makes the original film... Oh, the Treasure Island with Christian Bale and Charles... Isn't that from the 90s? Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. No, I've seen it. I just kept trying to ask you what movie is it, and you kept saying just TNT's presentation. You wouldn't tell me any of the actors in it or anything. Yeah, I know you're talking about Christian... Yeah. It doesn't help me just saying TNT's presentation, Treasure Island. There's a lot of versions of Treasure Island. I don't remember what network it was on. I've seen like 30 versions of Treasure Island. I've definitely seen the Christian Bale one, though. But here's the problem with the Donnie Darko. Okay, everything that's awesome about Donnie Darko is the stuff that you can add to the movie. Everything that you invest in the movie makes it greater. How does the time travel fully work? What is the ultimate message of the movie? Figuring out the timeline of the movie, watching it a couple times. Now, don't get me wrong, you realize all the stuff like Frank and all that in the first time you watch the movie. But it's just spoilers for Donnie Darko. And the reason that movie built such a big fan base was people used to sit around after renting the DVD and discussing this stuff, trying to figure this movie out. And there was a lot of clues, and it was great. It was like a puzzle. And there was a puzzle that seemed like you could solve it, or a riddle you could solve. And that's what I loved about Donnie Darko. So trying to solve the riddle was part of the depth of the movie, outside of it just being a great film with great direction and tone shifts, a great performance from Jake Gyllenhaal, great dialogue, funny movie, great Halloween stuff. The director's cut, unfortunately, and Richard Kelly explains this at the DVD commentary with Kevin Smith, and that DVD commentary really hurt that movie for me. So I'll still say this, I still love Donnie Darko, in the sense that I love the original film I saw, but I don't love Donnie Darko the way I used to. It's like how Tarantino said how The Matrix at one point was like one of his top movies of all time, and then the sequels ruined the mythology, and now he doesn't love The Matrix. And I totally get what he means. If we just had the first Matrix movie, I would love it too. But because we know so much stuff after that, it ruins part of the appeal. Because the answers suck. So what it turns out to Donnie Darko in the director's cut, he changes the music, which I think hurts the film. He wants to use some songs I think actually the other music was better. He adds stuff that the producers didn't want him to add, 20 minutes of the movie. The 20 minutes they wanted him to cut needed to be cut. Big time. In particular, the eye shots of Donnie, his eye shots that are like Richard Kelly trying to be Kubrick. And then you find out Richard Kelly wanted it to be more like a comic book. And the whole idea was that there was these aliens transmitting a message through time to Donnie, and Donnie was getting these messages and flashes, and that's why his eye pops up, or he sees these places in the distance. Yeah, I've seen Possession. And there's I saw it years ago, And then you find out that Richard Kelly had this idea where Donnie was getting signals from aliens in another sending through time, and he kept having flashes, and he was becoming a superhero, and it's more about Donnie's character turning into a... He says this stuff in the DVD commentary. This is not my interpretation. This is what he is saying to Kevin Smith. He is saying, I thought about Donnie as a comic book character, like a superhero, who's getting superpowers, and he's getting this message transmitted so he can do this thing to time because it affects everything. That's so stupid to me. I mean, to me, that's just stupid. And everything that was so... because the answer was, where's he getting the time travel powers from? What's going on? Why is Donnie so special? Because he didn't die in the plane thing. It created a paradox, so then he had to go back in time. Well, why? All that stuff was so interesting. To find out that it was just like alien beings transmitting a signal to him through time and space, and it's all based off comic book imagery and anime, and he wants the single eye and all that, that's so much less interesting than it just being what your own mind makes it up as. Like, oh, why did he get the powers? Or what does it mean? Your own version of that's fascinating to what you want it to be. I don't remember any of that stuff from the director's cut, so I could definitely... Yeah, that's all in the director's cut. The director's cut has the shot of Donnie's eyes, and it has the shots of another planet, of another place that he's getting the signal from. No, I love Donnie Darko. The original version. I don't like the director's cut. It ruined Donnie Darko. The director's cut ruins that movie and showed Richard Kelly actually was making a bad movie like he did with his other films, but the producers, in their wisdom, told him to cut 20 minutes. And they made him restructure it. Those 20 minutes he cut made the movie better. And that's the film everyone fell in love with. And then once it became a big hit on DVD, they gave him to go back and add that 20 minutes and add scenes that he couldn't shoot before. And then they re-released the director's cut for a cash grab because the film was doing well again. And it ruined what was so great about the original film. The original film, too, was so good because of the fact that it was a riddle. But then once he solves that riddle for you, and the eye shots and the signal shots explain this visually and him explaining it, you realize it's another stupid, crazy Richard Kelly idea, and you're just watching The Box and Southland Tales and all that again. You're not watching Donnie. You realize Donnie Dark was an accidental masterpiece. I've always wanted to make a video on this, accidental masterpieces. Films that were not going to be great, but because of circumstance... Like Star Wars is an accidental masterpiece. That film was terrible until George Lucas's wife fixed it in the editing, and the other editors, and the sound, and John Williams' score, Brian De Palma rewriting the crawl, cutting dialogue out, and then it became a great movie. Same thing with Donnie Darko. Everything that they made Richard Kelly get rid of, and everything that he had to work around as a filmmaker, made it a better movie and enhanced the things that he did well. But then once they gave him free reign to have a director's cut, this is the problem with the director's cut. Part of what makes a movie great is the director has to make the finished film in the way he has to with the editing and what he has in the producers. When you get to go back and just change the movie you made, and this isn't like totally like Blade Runner, where the film was shot entirely without the idea of narration. Richard Kelly wanted to have this stuff in here. Ridley Scott and them didn't want narration in Blade Runner. It was added later. But it becomes, yeah, accidental masterpieces happen just all the time. People give too much credit to filmmakers. They think one director makes a great movie, and it's not that. Not everyone is Stanley Kubrick. Not everyone is David Lynch. A lot of directors made one or two great movies because that was the one or two great movies where they worked with those people and everything went well. Okay, it's hard to consistently make great original stuff. It's rare. It's rare to be that talented. That's why so many directors do the same thing a lot and try to develop it, like Wes Anderson or Bergman even. They develop their aesthetics. It's rare to see directors go from movie to movie and do something totally different in genre and in tone. Because it's tough to do. You need help of others. It's not just that film's collaborative. It's that things just have to go right. You have to be lucky. A lot of things can go wrong. The lighting can go wrong. The weather can screw you over. An actor who is not working with you and is not helping you with how you want to set up your shots can screw things up. Music can screw... You could have the movie in your head when you're writing it and filming it with certain songs in your head, and then you can't get the rights to those songs when the movie comes out. That stuff all affects a movie. It's, you know, that's all there is. Well, I must have watched the original version of the movie because I got the director's cut edition, so I thought that's what I watched. Yeah, you must have never watched the director's cut, because the director's cut's terrible. That's why I don't get. Yeah, the director's cut's awful. It's. Oh god, that scene's so good. Have you ever seen a portal? Oh, it's such a good scene when they're at the theater. The Evil Dead amazing sequence. Yeah, Prometheus. Yeah, that was one of those moments. You want gore? You want genre and tone? Paul Man, Paul Verhoeven, man. Can we talk about Starship Troopers being the most underappreciated film of its time? That critics gave it decent reviews and it didn't do that. It actually bombed. And now almost all filmmakers around the world have praised that movie as their favorite film of America the last, like, it's great. Starship Troopers has aged beautifully. I saw that film in the theater as a kid. I saw that movie when I was like 7 or 8, and I knew then it was a genius film. I walked out of the theater with my parents and we were laughing. We totally got the satire of and what it was saying about American intervention, war, propaganda. I mean, I remember coming out of the theater with everyone going, that was a master. I mean, I knew the acting was bad on purpose. I didn't watch that movie. Even as a kid, I got the acting. And I'd read critics who didn't get that stuff. I remember being a kid and, like, because I was into, you know, Siskel and Ebert, and I remember critics not getting some of that stuff about it, that the acting's bad on purpose. What Verhoeven's doing. It's like, did you not see RoboCop? Do you not get why he does Basic Instinct? It's even Showgirls. Everyone talks about how bad of a movie Showgirls is, and if you watch Showgirls, it's actually not that bad. A lot of the stuff about it that people say is bad is intentional by the director. It's part of what he's doing in the film. And Starship Troopers is a perfect movie in that regard. It's literally like a satirical masterpiece. The commercials in between are... It's an expansion of RoboCop. It's this expansion of all the great stuff from RoboCop, and he takes it to... And it's got some of the best action scenes ever. It's got some of the best CGI ever. The CGI has aged wonderfully. And it's got some of the best... It's got one of the best tones ever. It's an amazing movie. And there's a reason a lot of filmmakers around the world celebrate it, because it's great. I like Bertolucci loves it, and Scorsese, and like all these... you hear these, like at Cannes and stuff, they talk about how much they like it. It's a great movie. People didn't get it. They didn't respect it at the time. They didn't get how genius it was. He got a big budget. He got like $95 million to basically make a satirical art film. I mean, it was terrific. Yeah, Showgirls isn't a great movie, but I'm just saying a lot of the stuff people say about it that's terrible and cringe is stuff that was intentionally done that way. It's not like they did that stuff and it happened on accident. That's exactly what they're trying to do in the movie. Like, it's not a... Gina Gershon's the only one who seems to kind of get what's going on from an acting standpoint. But a lot of the stuff in that movie isn't that different from stuff that would be in a David Lynch movie. It's really not that far off. Dude, what do you... Of course, I know, I love Red Letter Media. They're like one of my biggest influences. I listen to all of their DVD comments. I pretty much agree with them on like everything. In particular, Mike and Jay. I agree with Rich a lot, but Jay and me have more similar, because he likes David Lynch and weird stuff, and Mike's not into that. But I do like schlock like Mike does. But I love Red Letter Media. What's so great about them is they know movies, too. When you hear them talk in those commentaries, reviews, they actually know stuff. They know their stuff. I mean, they even know the production history of movies and special effects and all that. Like, their Gremlins commentary is amazing. Yeah, I was a kid when I saw it, too, and it was great. It was stylistically designed to be that way. You can't change that. But we can diminish some of the effects of it. Starship Troopers is about fascism mixed with political correct. Man, it's so many things. That's what's so great about it. It's so many things. It's making fun of movies like that. It's making fun of American blockbusters. It's making fun of guns. It's making fun of military. It's making fun of, PC call. I mean, it's making fun of it's so many things. Starship Troopers is a film dense with subtext and meaning. It really is. It has so much to break down. Rob Egger has some great videos on it. Starship. I will be a Verhoeven fan till I die. Even his recent film that I just watched. That's amazing. God, what's the name of that movie? Where the woman gets raped and she wants to get, and she is a video game. It came out last year. It's amazing. I mean, a couple years ago. It's amazing. It was an amazing movie. It was like in my top 5 of the year. It was like Hitchcock. I mean, it was more Hitchcock. It was more De Palma, really. It was like classic De Palma. God, I can't believe I can't remember that movie. Man, Red Letter Media just doesn't want to commit to Ray sucking. That's the one thing about their Force Awakens stuff is they'll have no problem saying the Rogue One characters suck or Last Jedi sucks, but they don't want to just say the negatives of Force Awakens. What do you think of The Fifth Element? Entertaining, fun, great movie, visually, everything. Awful screenplay, and really stupid plot stuff, but it's so well made I don't care. It's like Luc Besson's like third best movie. It goes like The Professional, La Femme Nikita, and then Fifth Element. And then almost everything else he's made is terrible. He only cast his movies based off comic. He even wrote that script when he was 15. It feels like a 15-year-old comic book story. It reminds me of being a teenager coming up with ideas. But having said that, Fifth Element still has awesome design and awesome special effects. Yes. Ellie? Was it called Ellie? Yeah, that movie was amazing. I can't believe that chick didn't win the Oscar. I am shocked that Emma Stone won the Oscar against Isabella Rossellini or what. It was one of the best performances I've seen in years, maybe in 20 years. It's a fascinating movie. It's not just Paul Verhoeven return to form, because Black Book was good. It's one of his best movies. It's arguably right up there with The Fourth Man. It's great. I mean, because it's so great because at the beginning it has the most realistic rape scene I've maybe ever seen in a movie. Completely realistic. And then, as it goes on, the psychology of that character, you find out more and more that she's actually manipulating things, and that she might actually be crazy, and she actually enjoys this. It's such a complex way to look at that, like, because the whole idea is that you feel bad for her, automatically sympathetic, but then at the end of the movie, I took it as that she's like kind of like a psychopath. And this was almost by design, some of the movie. And the stuff that she keeps getting deeper into. I mean, it was insane. And then that with the video game aspect, and oh, I mean, it was like watching a great De Palma movie. It really was. I mean, it took me back to like what I loved about Body Double or Sisters or Blowout and that kind of stuff. It was so good, and it was yeah, one of the greatest performances I've seen in years. And an amazing screenplay. Whoever wrote the script to that movie, such a good film. I never reviewed it. I loved it. I loved it though. I mean, it blew me away. It really did. I couldn't recommend it enough. It's a lot of the things that it does what so many other foreign films do, like Cachet, but to me it does it so much better than a lot of those films. I used to think The Professional was underrated, but now it's like one of the most famous movies ever. Like, it's in the IMDb Top 250. It's had great DVD sales. Critics have reevaluated it. So I don't know. Like, that's a movie that was underrated when it came out, but now people all seem to consider it to be great now. It's like people did catch on that it was a great movie. Could you theoretically take Final Fantasy and make an animated miniseries out of it? Sure. You could theoretically do that with anything. You could take any franchise and make an original storyline series out of it if it's well done. You're not limited to the property itself. You're limited to your ability to write something good. It's on you. It's not on the material. It's not on the subject matter to make the material good. It's up to you to make the material good. I love Starship Troopers, although Verhoeven fundamentally misunderstood the book Starship Troopers. Man, I'll say this. I think he topped it. I love Starship Troopers as much as everyone else, too, and I agree with you. He didn't do a good version of James Cameron basically made Starship Troopers 2. He made a crappy version with Aliens. Because Aliens is just Starship Troopers. That's all James Cameron, because he wanted to do Starship Troopers, so he just mixed that with Aliens. But the thing is, I think all the stuff that's praiseworthy about the book, I think Verhoeven just does stuff that's way more praiseworthy. All the stuff that's great about the book, I think Verhoeven takes it to another level with what he does as a filmmaker and a storyteller. Like Starship Troopers is a great book. He makes arguably maybe one of the great American films of the 90s. Like one of the truly great, only great American films of the 90s like that. Have you seen the Star Wars mini-series from the early 2000s? What, the Clone Wars ones, like Andy Tartakovsky? I've seen those. But I think you have to view what Verhoeven did as a separate thing. And if you view it as a separate thing, it's genius. It really is. It's like, oh my god. You just can't look at it as a loyal adaptation of Starship Troopers. Just like if you try to view Aliens as Starship Troopers, it's a waste of time. Apparently, the creator of Battle Angel Alita would have liked to have seen Paul Verhoeven adapt Battle Angel. Oh, well, of course. I'd like to see Paul Verhoeven. He's a master of special effects. Do people not realize how good Starship Troopers effect? Even Hollow Man has great special effects. He's actually one of the most underrated. Total Recall has seamless special effects. You know, he's one of the most underrated special effects masters. He's up there with Spielberg or any of them. His special effects have aged. Starship Troopers, that CGI is miraculous. It just is. Those bugs look crazy good. They still look good. They looked real then, and they look great now. Hollow Man looks great. Total Recall looks great. He's a master. RoboCop still looks great. Even the cheap stuff of RoboCop is it's self-aware and funny. I mean, just a master of tone and special effects. He's a terrific director. He's never made a film I don't like. Even Hollow Man, I don't like it, but it's still a fun, goofy, schlocky film. You just can't go wrong with Paul Verhoeven, man. He gets it. I mean, I don't know. That's not really a film I'd like to see Paul Verhoeven do. Pacific Rim. That sounds like a good movie. What if... Yeah, I don't know. Actually doing really well. Has some good legs. It's $75 million domestic and is at reconnection successful. Shit, did we get disconnected, people? Was there a disconnection for a minute? It said that OBS was disconnected for a second. I hope that we didn't lose the signal. But yeah, $84 million budget, $75 million domestic, and $74 million foreign, $150 million worldwide. So this is a film that I said in the first weekend wasn't going to do that well and might be a bomb, but it's actually proving me wrong. Pitch Perfect 3, $10 million. That's pretty bad for this film in comparison to the second film. $85 million domestic, $140 million worldwide. Definitely going to make a profit, but it is not even coming close to the the second film's total. It's bigger than the first film, but the budget's much higher. The original film had a low budget, so I'd say that's a disappointment domestically. Ferdinand, which is relying solely on foreign box office, is at $183 million worldwide. But with that big budget, it still has a long way to go. Molly's Game opened to $7 million in 1,600 theaters. That's a surprisingly good opening weekend for this. I was not expecting that. That's really good for this. $14.2 million domestic. That's not bad for this movie. Darkest Hour, doing great at the box office. This is one of the most successful Oscar bait movies of the year. I am shocked how well this is doing. This might end up being Joe Wright's highest grossing film domestically. I'm pretty sure this could pass Atonement or Pride and Prejudice if it goes at this pace. I mean, it did. I mean, look at the box office for this movie. It's been crazy. It's already passing. It's going to pass Lady Bird. It's going to pass 3 billboards. It's past 3 billboards. It's going to pass. God, so many films this year that are like Best Picture movies. Like, this is crazy. Like, look, its first that 800 theater release, 3, then 5, then 5, and then 7, and then 6 this weekend. It did 7 last weekend and then 6 this weekend. It went up 15%. So this film, which is in 1,700 theaters, has already made $35 million. I don't know how much this film cost. But you just think these kind of period pieces, it's not quite the King's Speech, but it's doing well. Disconnected for a split second. Okay. Hard to believe the bugs in Starship Troopers were CG. They still look amazing. They still look amazing. They looked amazing then and they look amazing now. I'm shocked how well they look, but yeah, Darkest Hour is overperforming. It's doing a lot better than a lot of the other Oscar hopefuls. Coco, $192 million domestic. $200 million film. Right under $600 million worldwide. Disappointing domestic total for the studio and all that. Typically, animated films do a little bit better than that. All the Money in the World is dropping. It's down to $20 million. I believe they have $50 million in that movie, so it's not doing that great. Shape of Water is actually dropping steadily. $3 million this week and $21 million. It's weird that Darkest Hour is doing better than Shape of Water. I, Tonya, $2.4 million, increase of 300% in 240 theaters, $5.2 million. Doing pretty well. Wonder by Steven Chbosky, $2.4 million, $126 million domestically, $218 million worldwide on a $20 million budget. That's some good stuff right there. Downsizing continues to be a bomb with $22.8 million domestic on a $68 million budget. The Posts by Steven Spielberg, 200% increase in 36 theaters. $3.8 million, $50 million budget. I think that film will do better once it goes wide. Lady Bird from Greta Gerwig, which is getting traction to win Best Picture, $34 million. A24's highest-grossing film now, past Moonlight, with a budget of $10 million. Although I believe The Darkest Hour will pass that soon for specialty box office. Father Figures with Owen Wilson. Even though Wonder was a hit, this is a bomb. Oh, hey, look, guys. Calvin and Hobbes. I've been reading that lately, so I've been going through it again. Call Me By Your Name. 1.6% increase, $758,000, $6.6 million, $3.5 million film, not including marketing and distribution. The Disaster Artist, $781,000, $10 million film, not marketing and distribution. Hasn't made a profit yet, and it continues to drop. This is the smallest drop yet, but the film's only in 470 theaters, and it did not catch on. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, another film that could win Best Picture. $25 million domestic, and one of the best acclaimed films of the year from the director of In Bruges. Justice League, $550,000, $652 million worldwide on a budget with marketing and all $450 million. That is a failure. Thor Ragnarok is at $312 million and $850 worldwide on a $180 million budget. Daddy's Home 2 is at $102 with a $69 million budget. They probably didn't make much profit off that. Murder on the Orient Express, $101 million, $338 million worldwide, $55 million budget. That's a very successful movie. Phantom Thread from Paul Thomas Anderson is in 6 theaters and made $245,000 this weekend. That puts its total right under $1 million. A Bad Mom's Christmas is at $72 million and $127 million worldwide on a $28 million budget. So not as successful as the first film, but still successful. The Florida Project, which has the worst ending I've seen ever, is made $5.4 million, and I guess they opened it. I guess they're trying to keep it in there before the awards seasons really kicks in, because that movie may have a shot. Willem Dafoe winning supporting actor is still the current front runner. All right, so story of the weekend, man. It's all about the Jumanji and Darkest Hours killing in specialty box office. Star Wars is nearing the end of its crazy good run. Insidious had a higher than expected opening weekend. And everything else is staying around the same as it was over the last few weeks. Alright, guys. Well, the Golden Globes is starting in 3 minutes, and I would have to go deal with that. Oldman is a really good actor. I would disagree. He's a great actor. Yeah, Oldman's one of the greatest actors of modern day. You know every Brit is watching Darkest Hour. Well, that's the thing. It's doing really well here, though. That's the surprising thing. I didn't think a film about Churchill... I mean, I know Dunkirk was a hit, but Dunkirk was like an action movie by Nolan. I'm shocked that this film, which is much more a period film, where, you know, it's people talking in rooms, I'm shocked it's doing so well. That just surprises me, you know. But King's Speech surprised me. I find stop-motion creature movements kind of creepy. And I do, too. I agree. I think stop-motion can be very effective if used properly. All right, so this is the Box Office Addict, where we did not talk about the box office. And I promised starting next week I will stop ranting and going on so much about The Last Jedi, and I'll focus more on several films instead of focusing solely on The Last Jedi. I agree with some of you, the stream should be box office mixed with the movie stream, but this has already gone on way longer than I wanted. I did not want it to be 2 hours and 20 minutes, which I know is just a running gag at this point. The show always goes longer than I wanted to, but this is an especially long one. This is one of the longest episodes of Box Office Addict. I spent, I think, a little bit too much time talking about Last Jedi. I did a response to comments video that I had ready and done, and I just didn't want to upload it because it was 2 hours, and I thought it just came off too indulgent, so I thought I would address it here in this live stream, but I ended up becoming indulgent, ironically, in that way. Gotta figure my payment out, sorry, but keep it up. Hey, man, it's no big deal. You can just get me next time if you want. You don't have to worry about it, you know. Yeah, I'm going to still Last Jedi. I'm going to still talk about it, but I don't want Box Office Addict to get taken over by it. I spent an hour talking about it. Although, I granted I did about Justice League too, and it's the story, but I wanted to talk about Jumanji more and that stuff, and I just didn't get enough time. I'm trying to... Because, you know, a lot of the people subbed right now and everything's about Star Wars, and I'm just trying to get all that stuff out of the way so I don't have to talk about it anymore. I'm just kind of done with it. But yeah, I'll you know, maybe next week we'll talk about The Last Jedi once we get to it, and we won't just start with that. I agree, it needs a good pummeling, and there's a lot of people leaving comments to me saying stuff that I'm trying to respond to. You know, I have thousands of comments to go through. According to the director, Darkest Hour is actually an anti-Trump film. Huh. How is it an anti-Trump film? How is Churchill, during the events of Dunkirk, like anything like America right now with Donald Trump being president? Is he trying to say that Trump and America are the Germans? And they're attacking the UK? They're attacking Britain? Like, what? What? I don't even get that pair. What is it about leadership? Like how Churchill's a better leader than what Trump can be, I guess. All right. I wish it was an anti-Hitler film. That's probably what it should be. Considering, you know, Donald Trump wasn't a figure in the world then that mattered, but yeah, apparently World War II was against Donald Trump. Yeah, that's what I say. Wouldn't Churchill actually kind of like Donald Trump? Wouldn't they have gotten along more? Like, I don't really take him as the kind of, like... Yeah, I don't really take him as, like, the complete antithesis of Donald Trump. Yeah, I guess Trump's Hitler now and America's Nazi Germany. Apparently, that's what it is. During World War II. I want to see that 2-hour video, bro. Man, I just don't want to upload it because it's so indulgent. It's me going comment by comment on my Rose video and just pointing out the problems with what people are... Because everyone strawman me. Everything they strawman my points, and then false equivalencies. They're like, oh, you like Cassian in Rogue One, but then you don't like Poe. So you like when a character's gray in this movie and it's like, I wasn't praising Cassian, but first, here's why it's a false equivalency. Cassian, when we're first introduced to him, shoots somebody because he can't take the guy with him. That's Cassian's character. He's established that way, and then he dies at the end of the movie. It's a standalone thing. Force Awakens sets Poe up as not that as a gray character. He's a classic hero character. That's how he's designed, and that's how he's acted by Oscar Isaac. Is old school classic movie hero. And then this film tries to make it like he's a cocky hothead who's in over his head who has to learn a lesson. It's two separate things. Alright, it's not that I'm unhappy with the grayness that Poe has now. It's that how Cassian's story was done is that it was consistent from the beginning with his character and who he became at the end. Poe's character has no consistency because the writers just change to whatever it wants to be. Cassian's character is defined in that first action when he shoots that guy. You understand him then. That's the Han Solo Greedo moment. Where you go, this is the kind of guy he is. You don't get that moment, and you don't get that moment with Poe, because we don't know who Poe is. They keep changing who he is. Is he a hero guy who's right and does the right thing? Or is he a character who's in over his head, a hothead pilot who's the hero character and he can't be a hero? Like when it's failure, like when he's on the walkie-talkie and he realizes they failed. That's supposed to be a big moment in the movie, but it's like... It's just kind of lame. You're just kind of sitting there like, oh, I get what you're doing, but it's not emotionally anything rich. Once again, it's just ideas that aren't really executed in a way that's that organic or interesting. It's very... I mean, Poe hardly has a character. He's hardly defined at all. We barely know anything about him. We don't know why he's the way he is. I mean, there's really... He's just whoever the writer wants him to be. These aren't characters. These are just actors. Decent actors trying to do something with no material. They're not really... Poe's not even a character. There's not a character there. Wow, Jumanji hasn't even come out in China and Japan yet. Wow. I mean, I'm not the world's biggest Donald Trump fan either, but yeah, the whole Hitler thing is just so silly. It's just like the context is just completely ignored. Man, I would stay on while the Globes is on, but I wouldn't be able to listen to it while we're doing this. I really would do this with the Globes are on, but I can't because I don't want to upload a 5-hour episode of Box Office Addict. You know the Golden Globes are going to go on for 3 hours. You just know they are. I will try to do a live stream on Oscar night. I'm not promising anything, but I will try to do the Oscars live. I should have done... I didn't know the Golden Globes were on tonight, guys. I'm sorry. If I had, I might have set something up. But thank you for tuning in to Box Office Addict. If you're watching this, you're probably a Box Office Addict yourself. Thank you for everyone in the chat. Thank you for the donations. Thank you for all the new subscribers. If you are a fan of The Last Jedi, I'm not crapping on you or your opinions or your views on this. I'm just trying to talk about what I have problems with Rian Johnson's film and the script and what the producers are doing. I'm attacking the filmmaking and the people who made the movie, not you. It's okay for us to disagree. Your interpretation and feelings on a movie are different from my own because things that you can explain to yourself that you like are there because you fundamentally like the movie. If I don't like the movie at all, even in its core, then I can't explain those things to myself. All right. I'll see you guys, though. Thank you for tuning in. And I appreciate everyone. And this was one of the longer episodes. Let's give you guys the outro music. And who's even hosting this year? Jesus. Don't watch the Golden Globes. I'm going to watch it, but you probably shouldn't. Don't support these a-holes. You know what they're going to do all night? They're just going to talk about Trump and Harvey Weinstein. Autumn turns to winter, and then winter turns to spring. It's not just the seasons, you know, it goes for anything. A boy is just a man inside, a girl's a woman too. You wanna follow me? Then this is what you do. When it's time to change, then it's time to fucking change. Don't you see? When it's time to change, you've got to rearrange who you are into what you're gonna be. Sha-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Sha-na-na-na-na-na-na. Sha-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Sha-na-na-na-na. Day by day, you are going through a little bit of living, a little bit of growing. All adds up to you. That song's so great. God, I sure hope Bathory's not listening in.